Hello and welcome to the newly renamed TCL GT World Challenge Asia eSports Series presented by Tarmac Works. My name is Paul Jeffrey and today I am delighted once again to have alongside me Mr. Ben Constantiouros. Ben, how are you today?
Yeah, very well, thank you, Paul. Very much looking forward to this one, the penultimate round of our championship, which is a bit of a shame. But two legendary circuits to finish off the season. Finishing off, obviously, in Asia at Suzuka, but today it's about Spa-Francorchamps, and that is a track.
Yeah, Spa-Francorchamps is an amazing circuit, and in voice but not vision, we have the voice of GT World Challenge, Mr. David Addison. David, great to have you with us, and Spa-Francorchamps, what a circuit and what a challenge.
It is the best circuit in the world. There is no doubt about it. It's got everything. It's got fast bits, it's got dangerous bits, it's got twiddly bits, it's got good bits for overtaking, and it's got the best beer in the world. And what's confusing me is that we've got virtual cars and a virtual circuit, but there's real beer sitting in my commentary booth here in the UK. So hopefully things by the end of 3 hours of a broadcast will still be moderately coherent. But we're in for some great racing. We really are, because not only do we have two fantastic races in isolation to look forward to, we've got championships that can be sewn up today across all four classes. Some are more likely than others, but you've got the race to concentrate on, you've got the championship to concentrate on, and at a circuit that, as we all know, can really bite if you're not careful.
Fantastic, thanks David. It is, yes, as David said, this is the penultimate round of the season from the circuit to Spa-Francorchamps. For anybody who's new to the broadcast, firstly, welcome and hello, great to have you with us. And we've got two races ahead, 60-minute races with a mandatory pit stop, the first of which will be our Pro and Am eSports sim drivers. And Ben, so far this season, the Pro-Am eSport drivers have put on a fantastic show for the audience, haven't they?
It's been a bit of a revelation for us, actually, because coming mainly from Europe here, we don't get a chance to see some of these drivers perform very often. They have their own microcosm of eSports racing down there in the Southern Hemisphere, and therefore for us to see them and see the pace that they have is really, really entertaining, and they've been thrown some challenges across the season so far. Of course, we've got this mandatory pit stop, which means there's an element of strategy. Some tracks less than others. Silverstone, we saw something going on that we kind of worked out by the end, and I think today they're going to have another challenge at Spa.
Yeah, they are. Spa-Francorchamps is a 7-kilometre racetrack. It's got some of the most famous corners in the world, Eau Rouge, Raidillon through to Pouhon. It's a circuit, Ben, that's challenging on the tyres and actually might make a bigger difference strategy-wise than some of the races that we've seen so far this year.
Should have been there this weekend, a couple of days ago. Should have been at Spa-Francorchamps for the World Rally Championship, would you believe, in the World Rallycross, but that got cancelled, I'm afraid. So missed out on my trip to Spa this year. But you're right, it's you've got the straights, and you can set the car up for the straights. And then you've got the middle part of the lap, the newer part of the lap that was built in 1985, which, as you say, medium to high-speed corners puts a lot of pressure under the tyres. But I think today, with the conditions that we're going to see in both races, I don't think there's not going to be too much heat, so I don't think that should be too much of a problem. It will be perhaps a premium for the sim races.
Fantastic, and as David mentioned at the top of this show, there are some championships that may be decided. So let's have a quick look at the standings for the Pro and Am eSports sim drivers heading into this race. As you can see, we have got a very tight fight at the front of the field. Filippo Bocchida leading the championship from Carl Peterson in the Am standing championship. And of course we also have the Pro drivers as well. Points are scored all the way down the running order, so not only do you want to win, you also need to finish in the points to stand a chance of the championship. Our race winner last time out at Silverstone heads the championship standings at the moment, and he's had a fourth, a third and a first, Ben. So before further ado, let's go to a recorded interview that we did earlier in this week. And now we're with Andika Molana. Andika, great to have you with us. Congratulations on the win. Last time out, the long-awaited first win.
Yeah.
Must mean a lot, that, to you.
Yes. First of all, thanks so much for the team and friends that supporting me till the end with me. We train together, we discuss a lot together, and finally we can deliver it to the win, and it means really a lot to me, of course.
Yeah, great result last time out.
Yeah,
And of course, we've seen some fierce battles in the series so far. Have you been impressed with the level of drivers and skill on show?
Yes, absolutely. Some of the pro guys are really fast, and even the Sim M drivers. To be honest, it's many fast drivers on Sim M. So many fast drivers in the field, and so I aim at the race not to win the class, but I try my best to win the overall.
And obviously, winning at Silverstone, that puts you in the championship lead. Do you think you can extend that over the next 2 races?
To be honest, it will be another hard work for me because I admit Spa and Suzuka are the tracks that not really me, not really my style. But I rarely practice on the Spa and Suzuka before. In Spa itself, I practice like almost every day for now, and let's see. I'll try my best.
Fantastic. And actually, you mentioned Spa and practice, which is a great question. How much time and effort and mileage have you been putting in ahead of this race at Spa?
Actually, it's like every day, every night. Like I practice and seeing the data log from Motec. Like every night, so for your info, I sleep every day like 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. just to see the data. Because Spa is somehow at first is I'm super slow at Spa. Like when I first practice in Spa, it's like 2 minutes 20 seconds, and it's like a 44 seconds different. And then, oh my, I did really bad, so I need to practice a lot harder for this one.
Fantastic. Well, I'm sure that you will be able to be on form when the time comes. Talking of the series itself, it's great to have this kind of championship in the Asia region. What does it mean to you as a driver to be involved in something of this scale?
It means really a lot for me, of course, because racing in this series now as an Asian, now we are being recognized by the world. Really thank you SRO for an organizer for these championships, and it's really nice, man. So now many people know that Asia also have a fast drivers, and I hope in the future we will have more professional sim racing competition like this for Asian, because when we go to Europe it's always about ping issues. So I hope many more Asian competitions like this.
Fantastic. And of course, the GT World Challenge Asia Series uses Assetto Corsa Competizione, which has got a great selection of different cars and brands and some great drivers showing up. Have you been impressed with the sim and the level of driving talent as well?
I think ACC is one of the best GT3, especially GT3 sims out there. With every car is like a different way to drive. Like my car AMG, if you compare to Bentley, is really different cars. But in the end, the lap time is quite same. So I think the BOP is fair. Some cars have advantage, some cars have weakness. But I think in the end, it's really fair fight for every cars in the field. And so we don't see like a one-make race every round, and it's really nice, man, to see.
Yeah, it's been fantastic as a spectator to watch.
Yes, indeed.
Now, my final question, if I may, is you've had a fourth, you've had a third, and you've had a win so far this season. Are you now looking with one eye on the championship for the final 2 rounds, or are you pushing for race victory in each event?
Yeah, I already try hard since the first round, so I just continue what I need to do.
And that is a great tactic indeed. So, Andika Milana, thoroughly appreciate you taking your time out ahead of Spa-Francorchamps, and very best of luck in the race.
Yes, thanks so much, and see you guys next round.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Fantastic stuff from a very cheerful Andika Milana there ahead of this race at Spa-Francorchamps. So, without further ado, qualification has happened. The race is about to start, and I'm going to hand over to Ben Constanduris and the one and only Mr. David Addison.
Paul, thanks very much. Looking forward then to our first of two races here, the fourth round of our TCL GT World Challenge Asia eSports Championship, presented by Tarmac Works. And could you ask Ben Constanduris for anything more Spa-like than this? It's grey, it's wet, we've got a fabulous grid of GT cars, and we are going to have Ferrari starting on pole position, Ferris Stanley lining up alongside Andika Maulana, the championship leader. Newcomer, Brandon Dove, is on the second row with Andrew Lawrenson for company. Now, Maulana, championship leader, Lawrenson lies third within his class and needs to be in the mix, of course, in order to try and have a realistic chance of taking the championship to the final race at Suzuka. Rest of the grid is there, but perhaps a Ferrari on pole position, a little bit of a surprise, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. We do know that the mid-engine cars work well in the wet conditions, so expect to see the Nissan, the BMW was particularly strong when we had in the European wet race at the Nürburgring, and we've got about 30% rain and 30% wet track right now. I'll keep monitoring that because that does change quite a lot. Just 11 degrees is the air temperature, so this will be definitely wet tyres, but how it develops throughout the race will be interesting. Of course, they have a mandatory pit stop. They don't have to change anything in the pit stop, but they may want to, depending on how these conditions develop. So we may see pit stops kind of wait till the end of unless something changes.
Yeah, and that was something that we were focusing on a little bit last time out at Silverstone, weren't we? Learning a little bit about when drivers take the advantage of those pit stops. Some we thought might get them early, get them out of the way. Others leave late, and that doesn't yet seem to be the perfect way of doing it. I suppose you've got to try to second guess where you're going to be in the traffic. So, as we said in an earlier round of the championship, if you've got a real big team behind you, like for example Craft Bamboo Racing, and you've got a spotter that can project your gap, your pace, and where you're going to blend back in, try and get out of the traffic, then that's important. Otherwise you can compromise whatever you've just gained. Now, Andika Maulana, championship leader, he starts second. Kin Longley, second in the championship, he starts sixth. Andrew Lawrenson, third in the championship, he starts fourth. So in other words, you've got the three within the championship all lined up on one side of the grid. Andika Maulana can win in this race. He needs Lee to be, if he wins it, fourth or lower. If he's second, Kin Longley needs to be eighth or lower. I've not yet factored in Andrew Lawrenson's results, but we've got an hour to play with that. But of course, a lot of it, Ben, depends on whether they all get through Eau Rouge safely on the first lap.
Yeah, and also the Kemmel Straight. We've seen in other competitions
yes.
that there is a bit of a puddle at the Kemmel Straight, so you have to be careful. They always do a test race before we get these championship races underway. So they will be familiar with how this track races in similar conditions, not exact conditions, but that is a real help. And of course, also look at the top of the screen, 7:18 in the evening. It could be quite dark by the time we finish this race as well.
Absolutely right, and the rain, looking from the onboard shot here, suggests, as you go on board with Brandon Dove, the newcomer in his BMW, that it's a damp circuit, but it's not torrential rain. So how hard do they push? And indeed, is there a chance of that rain stopping for when we get to that mandatory pit stop? Well, we've got the weather to worry about, we've got the championship to think about, although there is one more round after this. Let's concentrate on the race itself. Ferris Stanley then, his best qualifying of the season, puts him on to pole position. Andika Maulana lining up alongside in the white Mercedes, the second row. Brandon Dove's BMW alongside Andrew Lawrenson's Laundry House Porsche, the third row. Luis Moreno, who did a good job in qualifying in the Nissan, and could it be one of those, like the BMW ahead, one of those grunty front engine cars here that's got the advantage in these conditions? Let's find out. Alongside Luis Moreno is Kin Longley with his Mercedes in true Spa style. The start is going to be at the old pits on the run down towards Eau Rouge. The finish will be here at the Formula 1 pits. It is the old pit lane that we use, not in the real world 24 hours where you put the two together. But we're about to go racing. Round 4 of the TCL GT World Challenge Asia eSports Championship, presented by Tarmac Works, is set to get underway. David Addison and Ben Constanduris trackside as the drivers now rumble their way out of La Source down the hill. They're going to accelerate away in a moment, and we'll find out who is going to be the bravest on a wet road as the pack is set to be unleashed to get round 4 of the championship underway. The lights go green, we go racing. Good start by Ferry Stanley from pole position, but Andika Maulana tries to squeeze up alongside him. He can't do it. Is he going to get hung out to dry on the climb up the hill for the first time? Let's see. It is Ferry Stanley who leads the way. Maulana second. Brandon Dove is third. And the BMW straight away then jinks out of the draft there, tries to gain track position on the climb up Radion.
And that's a great view of how wet this track is. Left-hand side racing line, much less wet than where most of the cars were on the inside there, so they were cooling their tyres, and that's going to be a massive issue throughout the whole of this race. Overheating the wet tyres or making them not work by wearing them out too quickly. We have a couple of yellow flags, so we have had people in the barriers early doors. Philippa Kapakida actually spun on the warm-up lap, but she managed to find herself back into her position, and a little bit of argy-bargy going on there for, was that P5?
I think it may well have been, as the cars then come downhill for the first time. You've got Luis Moreno there on his toes trying to get up the inside, but also going nicely is Charles Teixeira, who's actually gained from where he was on the grid down towards Paul Moreno. He's sideways on the inside line, catches the slide, but Ferry Stanley leading the way. Now Brandon Dove is doing a very impressive job here. First time we've seen him in the championship. He's gained already up into second place, and look at the way, of course, that Kin Long Lee is marred in traffic. That throws the advantage Andika Maulana's way, as there, look to the outside line, tries to go at Yatlim Law, number 390 BMW. Everywhere you go at the moment, you're in jeopardy, aren't you? There's traffic around you, and there's that wet line to cope with.
Yeah, Loris Moreno's not getting his car up to speed at all. I think he's really struggling the first couple of corners, the rear end stepping out, and he's catching it nicely, so that's pretty cool to see. Not an easy thing to do in sim racing, catch and oversteer, but now, once he can settle down, I think he's got the pace to get back into our leading contenders. Only one person retiring out of the race first lap. Nakib Aslan, unfortunately, is in the pits.
Okay, 8th in the Pro Championship, Nakib Aslan, so great shame that. We've lost one of the leading runners in the Lexus, as here Yin Zheng comes through the chicane, accelerates up now towards the timing line at the end of the shorter first lap, and he's going to be Ferry Stanley who leads from Brandon Dove, only 0.8 of a second between them. Andika Maulana runs third. Now for him to win the championship here, he needs the opposition, namely Kin Long Lee, to be 9th, and Lee has caught up to him, so he's got through the traffic. So if things were to stay as they are, this would push the championship decider for the pros down to that last round, Ben.
Yes, absolutely. As you mentioned earlier on off air, the sim standing is interesting because Carl Peterson, you may see, is not here. So that's going to, although the championship's quite tight right now, it does kind of put the pressure on Philippa Bakida to get some decent points right now, as Brandon Dove has taken the lead and drops Ferry Stanley down to second.
So the BMW, which again mirrors what we saw in the European equivalent of this in wet conditions, big cars, front engine, like these weather conditions. Ferry Stanley's Ferrari down to second place then. Maulana is third, Kin Long Lee fourth, Andrew Lawrenson's Porsche fifth, Charles Teixeira doing his usual trick of being good in the early part, but then he often fades away after the pit stops. Another of the newcomers, Otto Bismarck, the Malaysian 213 BMW, up into 12th place first time out as the cars tiptoe their way downhill. 45 there, Alwi Shahab in his Nissan. Another car that's looking pretty competitive right now, but Ferry Stanley trying to go back after the race leader, but Brandon Dove has done a good job of making that move and getting the race advantage.
And just to explain why we see such a difference and lots of different manufacturers, we have obviously the pro drivers that qualify through every single race, and then we have the top 5 in the AM Championship that automatically qualify, and they have to stick to the car in which they have competed throughout the series, and if you have scored any points in the championship, you also have to stick to that same brand. For the rest then, there is a couple of cars available, a couple of brands available to all of the qualifying drivers, and you can choose which brand to qualify in. So it might be easier to qualify in a BMW because less people choose that BMW. It might be easier to choose a Ferrari, for instance. So we see this change as we see a change for position in 8th spot, and that is a loss of position for Yatlam Law, who comes into the pits in the BMW. And interestingly, also, our leader, Brandon Dove, straight into the pits after just one lap. Is it getting too dry?
Good question, or getting it out of the way. So that was 2 laps done over the timing line. So 2 laps completed by Dove and also by Yatlam Law. Get that pit stop out of the way. And of course, at this point, the field relatively tightly bunched. So you're not going to lose too much, potentially. Let's see where Brandon Dove feeds back in. And indeed, where is he going to be relative to Yatlam Law's BMW as the cars climb the hill? Could be an inspired move by Brandon Dove, that, to get it out of the way and then regain the race lead as everybody else has to serve their pit stops.
Really depends on how much the track does dry up and if we do see changes of conditions. There is a dynamic weather model within this game, so it's not a fixed weather of 30% rain and 30% wet track for the whole race. That rain may intensify, that rain may dry up more. So it would be interesting to see. It's a big slide, and that's a loss of position. Maulana, I think that is. No,
it's Kinlong Lee, but it's significant because that's your man that's second in the championship. So Kinlong Lee lost a place to Andrew Lawrenson, who is third in the championship. So that's a really key fight. They're behind Andika Maulana on the road, but you've got the man that's third in the championship now jumping ahead of the man that's second within Pro. Really significant pass that for Andrew Lawrenson. And he's got to make the most of that, and I think he's doing so. But also now, look, we're getting a drive-through penalty for Yunchan Kim in the McLaren, 9th on the road, and getting a drive-through.
Yeah, multiple accidents through Eau Rouge on turn 1. So that is a drive-through given to him by the human race control element of this. We obviously have race control automated within the game. That generally for things like track limits if you skip across Eau Rouge. But we do also have a human looking at all the incidents and giving penalties as well. So unfortunately, that is one extra pit stop for Kim, Yongchan Kim.
That's right, in the Rapido Sim Racing McLaren, the Korean driver. Here, coming out of Les Combes, Brandon Dove there, number 35 BMW. So, 23rd after his pit stop, the leading stopper. So he kept track position ahead of Yatlam Law on those pit stops. And who else has made a stop? Terry Rayton has been in the Lamborghini from Laundry House. Tim Cook has been in as well. And so too, Philippa Baquida, I notice.
Yeah, now I think some of those pit stops are chosen stops. If you go a bit further down the order, the likes of Bangtanatip, I think he had to pit because he had a damaged car.
Right.
I also noting Kelvin Chen was in the pits on lap 1, and where is he now? That was obviously a good pit stop because he's
26th.
26th, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So ahead of Philippa Baquida, but he came into the pits on lap 1, and I would assume that was through damage rather than anything else.
Okay, Chen went well at Silverstone, didn't he? Because, of course, he had that really good race early doors with Philippa Baquida, lost out towards the end of it, but did drive well there, Kelvin Chen. He got third overall, but was second in class, lost out at the very end to the recovering Philippa Baquida after that spin that she had being tagged around. Now, right now, it's Ferry Stanley who leads the way, 0.7 of a second to the good over Andika Maulana. You've got Andrew Lawrenson third. You're looking at the fight for third, heading down towards Speaker's Corner. In fourth place is Kinlong Lee, and this, out of turn 9, Speaker's Corner, that left-hander, this is Kinlong Lee's view. Charles Fesira is fifth behind him. Plunge downhill into that left at Fouon, and that corner bend just goes on and on and on, doesn't it?
Now, an interesting, looking at the dashboard here, we've got in the bottom red square, that's map, so that's engine map. He's on 2. So in rainy conditions, and he's not using his windscreen wipers, so that's not particularly nice. In rainy conditions, you would generally not use as much fuel as you would in dry conditions. But obviously, the feeling is that you will not be able to, in some cars, and of course every car is different, be able to get to the end of the race on map 1, which is the fastest map. So a little bit of fuel preservation going on in that particular car. Is that needed necessarily? I'm surprised.
It's interesting, isn't it? And so too is the pace of Ferry Stanley. This is a guy who's had a 12th, a 34th and a 7th thus far, and he's leading at the moment by 0.8 of a second over Andika Maulana, who really has been very impressive, certainly over the last 2 races with a third and then a race win. And Andrew Lawrenson could be the man to watch in that third place in the Porsche. A bit of lappery going on there as the leaders dive down once more through at La Source. There is Ferry Stanley, traffic up the road. He's now done 4 laps as he comes out of the hairpin, plunges down the hill, but of course with the length of the road, with pit stop cycling through, that pace is likely to be compromised now because he's going to find slower cars ahead of him. And, of course, to do the overtaking, you go offline where it's even wetter.
Yeah, exactly, but that might also help the tyres. It does not look particularly wet when you look at those overhead shots, especially down Kemmel. And look, he's sticking to the right-hand side. He's wanting to cool the tyres down. And he will have on his dashboard a readout, not of the temperature, but of the pressure. And so he'll know if the tyres are getting overpressured by heat, and he'll be able to modify where he drives and tries to cool the tyres if he stays in the more wetter conditions. They will overheat when they start, especially on the straights, going along at fast velocity in the drier part of the track.
Whoops, somebody getting it all wrong there, going up towards Les Combes. That was possibly Shahab's Nissan, and there's more strife because, no, it wasn't Shahab, it was lower down, but there are more cars getting involved and slithering off the road, so there's been a real sort out at Les Combes. Possibly Isaac Norman could have been involved in all of that. However, right now for 10th, Ryan Houlihan is just keeping at bay. Number 45, Albi Shahab, as they drop down to Speaker's Corner once more. Yellow flags flutter around the circuit, and look at the race leading gap. It's creeping up, isn't it now? It's finally got to over a second. Is Maulana struggling for pace, or is he being really clever here and just banking the points for second position? Because Ferry Stanley is no threat as far as title honours are concerned.
Well, amazing in that interview to hear just how much time Maulana has been spending, not only practicing, but then analysing the Motec data that comes out of the game, as you would do in real life, and compare that to what perhaps he had done the night before, changing setups and all of this kind of thing. So really approaching this series as any professional driver would approach a professional series, by analysing the data and trying to extract the most performance out of the car. Saying that Spa and Suzuka also not tracks that he's particularly kind of his tracks, he says.
Well, it's interesting. I mean, as you say, he's there in second place, but he's got another of his not favoured circuits still to come at Suzuka. Great little battle, though, going on here between the McLarens. Ryan Houlihan in the orange one dives up the inside to try to make that move against the car of Guming Kim. And he comes out of the bus stop or the chicane alongside. He's got the drive off the corner on the grippier line. So through he goes. So Ryan Houlihan now goes up into 9th place, and that puts him into the unofficial lead of the McLaren class. And a big lose. Whoops, contact as well. Around went Kim, and as the car rolls backwards, that involves Shahab. And so as a consequence of that, the Nissan is delayed as well.
Yeah, a little bit of two-part contact in the braking zone and then rolling out of that incident. So a little bit clumsy from the two of those drivers. Now look at the dashboard here of Maulana. Again, map 2. Perhaps it's more of a traction control thing that they don't necessarily need all that power on the torque curve of map 1. But traction control at 6 and ABS is at 6 as well. So he is really relying upon the electrics of the car to have the grip. Other drivers, like we went on board with earlier on, much more doing that through the human feel. And if you were to talk to any real world driver, they would say, any professional driver would get into that car and turn all of the electrics off because the human is better than the computer.
Different strokes and all that. So Maulana, in fairness, I reckon he's upping his pace, isn't he? Because that gap we just mentioned was over a second. It's now come back down to 7/10. So Maulana certainly is having a red hot go here. And then you've got a back marker behind. So Andrew Lawrenson, he's falling away largely, I think, because Maulana is picking up his pace. They're going down now towards Lecole, through that right-hander on towards the Cour Paul Frere, but Andika Maulana is really going strongly here, chipping away at that gap. All right, it's crept up by round about a 10th, but net, he is closer than he was at the start of the lap.
Another thing to consider, especially with these guys in the sim race, is that we had on the 18th of November an update to ACC. Actually, an update for the 2020 SRO season. So the Imola track was brought in, and also the 2020 Pirelli tyres were brought in, as Prithee goes a little bit wide and makes a mistake there, grass. Now, the 2020 tyres do not affect the 2019 cars, and we are using 2019 spec cars and conditions in this particular championship. So they haven't had to completely relearn a new tyre, but the updates in the physics that have been brought in to basically update the game in total have affected the way that the cars are set up and have affected the way the cars feel. So when the update was brought in on the 18th, it was very hard for people to then improve their qualifying times post the update. Pre-update, they were able to go faster and faster. Post-update, they were not. And actually, the kind of consensus with some cars ended up being almost a second slower. Across the board, that's good. No one's lost anything, but it did mean they had to kind of rip up all of those setups and start again post-update.
Which is the equivalent, I guess, of a real-world evolution of the actual GT3 race car itself. I've got a new fax machine, by the way, Ben. We have a 15-second time penalty to number 45, Shahab, which I suspect might well have been for that rather clumsy incident down at La Source.
Let's have a look. It actually hasn't come up on my screen. It's being typed right now. You're too fast, David.
Yeah, okay, sorry, I'll go. No one's ever said that about me. We've got the best of the stoppers still being Brandon Dove in 21st place, and of course 44 minutes still to go. So I still think he's probably done that at about the right time as you go on board with Andika Maulana, 0.8 of a second. Ferris Stanley doing a good job up front, his best showing by far of the season to date, but he's not getting away, is he? Maulana is behind him. You've got Ferris Stanley's view on the left. You've got Andika Maulana's on the right. So clear road for Stanley. And the Ferrari being caught under braking as far as Maulana is concerned as they head now up towards Stavolo.
You were completely correct about the 15-second penalty, causing a collision. 45 on 55, so that's what we saw on the screen. That was an easy one for race control to sort out. Thank you very much to our host, Paul Jeffrey, who actually is a bit more of an expert in ACC than I am, pointing out that, of course, like in the real world, they will have a rain map on their engine settings, which basically takes away the edges of the torque curve to deliver the power, as Maulana goes a bit deep into the bus stop, deliver the power smoother so you don't get wheel spin. That is what map 2 is. Thank you for Paul for explaining that, and makes perfect sense. I just didn't quite think of it.
Now, what about this lead gap? Do we have an answer for why it suddenly shot up by over a second? 1.8 between Maulana and Ferris Stanley, who remains the race leader. Andrew Lawrenson is third in the Porsche. Kinlong Lee fourth, so he's the one that needs to somehow up his pace a little bit because he's losing out to his two championship rivals. Charles Vessera fifth, Luis Moreno is sixth. In seventh place, another of the Ferraris going nicely, Yuki Shirakawa.
Lawrenson's
that's Andrew
lost
Lawrenson. Andrew Lawrenson gets it all wrong at the top of Eau Rouge. He's not alone in all of that. He does get going, but that is a very, very significant moment as far as not only the race, but also the championship's concerned.
And lost it all on his own by the looks of things. Just got a little bit of oversteer and the car just headed off right, but then collected a couple of other cars, so we'll have significant damage from the collection of other cars. One of which I think is that Ferrari coming through shot. Not sure if Otto Bismarck was involved. I'll be able to follow the timing screens, which are frozen brilliantly, and that will give us a clue as to who else was involved in that. But certainly, Lawrenson, big loss.
So he's down the order. Can he survive? And as you pose the question, with what amount of damage, all of which, of course, helps Kinlong Lee, because as there you see Andrew Lawrenson, Kinlong Lee is back up into third place, which is good for the championship, means that he's losing fewer points relative to Maulana. He's outscoring Lawrenson, which is very good news, and Andrew Lawrenson, who rejoined sixth, but is about to lose out two, that's Bank Tanatip, isn't it? So he's dropped quite a long way down the order on this lap as he has recovered. So the lead gap is 1.6. Andrew Lawrenson's Porsche perseveres, but the Laundry House car in the Miami blue colours comes down now to the Lecole right-hander. And is he in danger of losing further ground? And indeed, does a pit stop beckon to sort out the damage, Ben?
I would have thought so, and in fact, Otto Bismarck was involved. Also, Yuki Shirakawa was involved. That was the Ferraris we saw. 15 seconds lost just touring back to the pit. So the cars are all rather damaged, and I think, you don't see it necessarily visually, but I think we will see Andrew Lawrenson come into the pits pretty quickly, and not only that, but then spend a long time in the pits getting the damage fixed. There he goes into pit lane.
All right, well, Bank Tanatip had just got past him, so that's going to put Andrew Lawrenson down to 20-something place, isn't it, when he trips the timing beam here. In he comes, but you can see he's dropping down and down and down. So Very bad news as far as Andrew Lawrenson is concerned. He's not the only one with damage in the pit lane. Ferry Stanley still leads the way. We've had effectively 1/3 race distance completed. 40 minutes to go, 20 done, as 45 there, which is Albi Shahab tries to fend off the Mercedes, number 94. That's in the hands of Zheng Yin. Now, Yin is 4th in the championship, so he also needs to get a bit of a wriggle on here, trying to get back up the order, gain more points if he can.
And it's very, very close, coming over the brow at Radiant in the slipstream, pulls out onto the racing line, which will overheat the tyres. The Nissan stays in the wet stuff, and also crucially on the inside line. And that should be pass made, but of course with the penalty hanging over.
Very hardy Belgian spectators, you notice, standing there in their shorts, not an umbrella in sight despite the rain. Very impressive.
Have you also seen the screenshot that we've been sent by the press officer? They've got masks on. I don't know if you can see. Yeah, but they're all wearing mandatory masks around the Spa track. So a lovely little detail there for the 2020 season by Kunos, who developed the game. And of course, look at this. Not only does Andrew Lawrenson have to come into the pits, he's got a very long pit lane to contend with.
So down the pit road he comes. So will serve his mandatory stop and rejoin. We had been told actually that it was only going to be the endurance pits, but it is the two put together, isn't it? So it does make it even longer. And Skippy, the kangaroo on the roof of the car, is about to blast back on track, ups his pace. Spa, of course, kind to Porsches in the Total 24 Hours in October, but not quite so kind right now in our TCL GT World Challenge Asia eSports Championship presented by Tarmac Works Round 4.
Well done, David. Lawrenson coming out, by the looks of things, and we do need to wait for everything to shape out, not too far behind. So the pit stop didn't obviously take him that long, which is good news. Bismarck also recovering back onto track, and Shirakawa, they're falling a bit further down the order. But Lawrenson looks like he's kind of settled in 18th spot, so he is only about 4th of those that have pitted.
It's a long way down the order, but we then, of course, have to bear in mind you score points in your class, don't you? So he's in pro. We need to take the AMs out of that equation and work out where that's going to put it. And, of course, Ferry Stanley is an AM, so even though Andika Maulana is second on the road, he is a class leader, so he'll still bag, if things stay as they are, maximum points, because he'll win his class. So this is really good for Maulana, and in fairness to him, it doesn't really matter what the gap is, because Ferry Stanley is not in his race. He doesn't need to worry about it. It's keeping Lee and Thesera and Moreno at bay that's the real key for Maulana. He doesn't need to worry about the AM up the road, does he?
No, exactly, and he'll know that. He'll see on his heads-up display the order of what the cars around him, and he'll see that Ferris Stanley has the red marking, and therefore is not in the same class as Maulana, who has the white background to his numbers.
Now, where's Brandon Dove in all of this? He's still the best placed stopper, is he not? Up into 14th, make that 13th now, as others either pit or indeed can't match the pace that Brandon Dove is evincing. Isaac Norman, number 10 Nissan, going down towards Bruxelles here and trying to push on as best he can. So Ferry Stanley looking good. Don't forget, he is not only leading outright, but he's the leading AM, and he's class opposition 6th. So he's got a really good cushion over Ryan Houlihan.
It was Brett Maybury, I think, who was the fastest qualifier in the hot lap competition to get the AM drivers into this race. And you are able to do that if you are in the Asia region. Just simply, when this race is ended, the next hot lap competition opens, and as long as you are choosing the right car and then have the right pace, you could too be on the grid for the final round at Suzuka. Brett Maybury was the man to do that in the Porsche, but in dry conditions, and it doesn't seem like really the Porsche is the car to have in these conditions. So it's kind of lucked in and to those other drivers like Brandon Dove, who perhaps wasn't the fastest qualifier, but he chose the right car.
Yeah, he was third on the grid, wasn't he? But having got the race lead away from Ferry Stanley, another of the Laundry House contingent Ferris, despite the Ferrari red across the colour scheme, it is a Laundry House car, and he leads now by 2 seconds from Andika Maulana, but he leads by the proverbial country mile over Ryan Houlihan as far as the AM class standings are concerned. And we're not that far off half distance now. Zheng Yin goes out of La Source, plunges downhill. He's in 8th place at the moment. Wipers on in the Mercedes, still on this wet road that we're coping with here at Spa-Francorchamps. And Ferris Stanley, the race leader, as Ying Zhen climbs the brow out of Radion along the Camel Straight now up towards Les Combes. And the Mercedes getting away from the opposition for the moment. Further back, you've got the Audi about to lose position as well. But Ying Zhen looking pretty strong right now. He's up into 7th place overall, putting himself ahead of Mikko Nassi's Craft Bamboo Racing Mercedes on this lap. And Mikko Nassi dropping further away into the pack. It'll be his best. Sliding out of Les Combes is Mercedes. Down at the chicane, Yun-Chan Kim in the McLaren that is in 14th place. Brandon Dove ahead on the road, getting quicker and quicker all the time. So over the line goes Yun-Chan Kim, penalised earlier on for an incident, multiple collisions on the opening lap. So Yun-Chan Kim, of course, finding himself out further down than his natural pace would suggest. And there, Charles Mestira goes out a little bit wide. No, that was Mikko Nassi, in fact. Mikko Nassi in his Mercedes running out wide, losing some spot to Shahab, and also Isaac Norman is in that mix as well. So Isaac Norman has gone back ahead of him. It's all getting very, very crowded. They pile out of 4th. Fantastic racing down towards 5th lap now. And Mikko Nassi, who's only done one round of the championship, and that was last time out at Silverstone, 39th he was classified. He's getting his elbows out here and really racing in a very feisty fashion. On board with Isaac Norman. He's 10th at the moment, but he's coming under attack. He's offline as well as tiptoeing his way through Cambolio through a full track. Crawling all over the back of anybody who's trying, determined to get himself further and further up the order here. Isaac Norman at 21st, his best result, showing really good pace. We nudged towards half distance. Look back from Isaac Norman's car. There, look, on the attack is Jiming Kim. So this is for 10th place. Out of the chicane they come. Well, it mustn't anymore, looks like it's light, so it's just become a chicane really. And over the timing line goes Isaac Norman then. Pretty good at the moment. So there you have the car of Isaac Norman making his way
and also
up the hill, the Australian driver, and he's
New Zealander
under attack from Jiming Kim, who makes his move to the outside line, and the McLaren looking very good. Of course, that's where the aero kicks in, so it's a nice svelte shape right round the outside. He tries to go, perfect move, about an inch between the two of them, but Jiming Kim gets himself through into the top 10. That was a really impressive pass round the outside, left nothing on the table, and the McLaren goes through back ahead, back into the top 10. So we are with 31 minutes to go, and the drivers plunging downhill in this fight for 10th place. Kim from Norman, and then you've got a lapped car behind. 12th in the classification is Brandon Dove. Remember, he is the man that has already served his pit stop. He is the best placed of the stoppers. Is the race going to come to him? He's also significantly Ben and Am, isn't he? Which makes his showing thus far very impressive. No, not this year. No.
Outside, inside to Tanda and get that nice.
So as you look at the fight between Jiming Kim and Isaac Norman, this is still for 10th place. Waiting to see now, out of that leading 11, who the next pit stopper is going to be. Now, Ben's theory is that it's a good one, is that you wait till late in the race, because then if the weather is changing and it's drying up, you can perhaps do a tyre change as well as serving that mandatory stop. Make one stop, not two. Ryan Houlihan has just pitted out of 6th place. So number 999 McLaren is going to be an interesting one to see when it blends back in relative to Brandon Dove. Out of La Source goes that fight for 10th place. Still serving his stop is 999 Ryan Houlihan. So Brandon Dove still looking as though he is going to be in charge. There, climbing the hill, is the car of Isaac Norman. Isaac Norman, forgive me, in 11th place. So where does Houlihan drop back in? Screen's updating itself as we get to the first sector point on the lap. And is Brandon Dove going to be ahead? That's the question. The evidence is going to say no. So Ryan Houlihan looks as though he's jumped ahead of Brandon Dove on the pit stop. So 999 McLaren ahead of the 35 BMW. Now lower down is Andrew Lawrenson, and this is his view. He has served a pit stop, remember, after he's off. So Andrew Lawrenson accelerates then out of the chicane up towards the line. But of the stoppers, it is now Houlihan ahead of Dove.
Yeah, so that's interesting that Houlihan's managed to jump Dove by just being in a different part of the track and making that pit stop in a very different time. I'm not trusting that the gap is... No, Houlihan's now dropped behind, so actually it hasn't yet settled down yet because the gap is huge. So let's wait until Houlihan goes over the next timing line, and indeed he is dropping down. So Dove ahead of Law is the top two stoppers.
Whoops, big drama there, look, because at the end of the straight, contact, and hopefully they can sort themselves out, but there is going to be some damage sustained out of all of that as Yuki Shirakawa perseveres. Now, Shirakawa, of course, was involved in the Lawrenson drama earlier on, wasn't he? So he's running 19th at the moment, but with a delay earlier on in the race, Ben.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't see a big, long pit stop from him. It didn't feel like the pit stop was particularly long, and he didn't lose that much time. Sitting there, what is that, 4th or 5th pit stopper? Shirakawa here was also involved, and he's just behind Bismarck, who was also involved in that. Now, Bismarck is 20 seconds off Maybury, so they did lose some time, but it feels as though Lawrenson may have got away with it.
Yeah, he's certainly recovering as best he can, and actually he's not that far. Whoops, big slide there for Shirakawa going through Bruxelles. He's not that far behind Houlihan. Now, can Shirakawa hang on to that place? Let's see. Yes, he can. He just about gets away with that as they drop down the hill. So 27 minutes to go. Brandon Dove is still the leading stopper, and he's got quite a big margin over the similar BMW of Yatlam Law that pitted also very early in the race. What about the race leaders? It's coming down again. It's absolutely come down. It was 8/10, but now, Ben, in the traffic, look, they are nose to tail for race honours.
Now, that was a mistake from Ferro Stanley. He's lost 3 seconds on this lap. Maulana's lost 2 seconds. So I wonder whether they reacted to each other. But now Stanley needs to be very, very good and aggressive and clever through this traffic. Otherwise, it's going to give Maulana the race lead that he doesn't necessarily care for. But they've got to be so careful through traffic because people are taking funny lines. They're moving around the track to try and cool their tyres. And they're much less predictable than you would find in a usual dry race.
But if Maulana is savvy about this, could he make his pit stop now? Get out of the traffic. Because, as we keep saying, Ferris standing is not his fight. There are back markers all around. He's got to serve that stop sooner or later. Well, there's your answer. He stays out, still on the back of the Ferrari. But Andika Maulana has certainly chipped away 4/10 of a second. It was now half a second as he breaks the beam at the timing line. But there's another back marker up the road, Ben.
And you're completely correct. They're all... Well, actually, a lot of them are losing quite a lot of time. So I wonder whether, with 25 minutes still to go, these tyres are now starting to kind of ask no more. Stanley and Maulana losing half a second before they've even got to Eau Rouge. That, for me, feels like something, not just traffic, but something else is up too.
Okay, well, Ferris Stanley, despite the pressure being thrown at him by Andika Maulana, hangs on to that race lead. So Ferris up towards the Lecombe right, left, right sequence. Andika Maulana looks to the inside line, but of course Ferris Stanley needing to be mindful of where this Mercedes is, but also keep an eye on that slower car, that back marker up the road out of Lecombe. They will come now, drop down to Bruxelles. Andika Maulana hunting down the Ferrari, but Ferris Stanley it is who still leads the way.
And already 1 second lost to their best lap time. And they're not even really halfway through the lap. So the pace is dropping from these two. And you're totally right, David. They should have at that point dived into the pits, got themselves out of this situation, even split the two of them, because Ferris Stanley's going to be looking in his mirrors. He's going to start being distracted about what's going on. He's even got his indicator going on there. I'm not quite sure what that is. Is he saying, come past me, Maulana? He's indicated left. Maulana goes right, and I think this is a change for the lead.
It is indeed. Andika Maulana goes through then. So is Ferris Stanley thinking about an AM win? Let the quicker car go. Well, it's only been quicker over the last couple of laps, really, to bring down that gap. Maybe Ferris Stanley is also of the opinion that it's easier to chase than be chased. Now he can measure his pace against Maulana. Maulana becomes the pioneer. He will be the first one to find the back markers. He'll be the driver that's got to get past that slower car up the road. Will that give Ferris Stanley a chance to come back at him? Well, right now you'd say no, wouldn't you? Because that gap has suddenly opened up.
And the key thing is, how is their pace compared to Brandon Dove? And in that last lap, Ferris Stanley lost another 4 seconds. Brandon Dove is losing about a second. He's about, less than halfway through the lap. So everybody's tyres are not up to where they should be. They are losing seconds and seconds a lap. Now, here's the question. Do you go into the pits, if you haven't pitted already, and change your tyres? You're going to lose about 20 seconds to do so, but if you're losing that much time, lap after lap, because your tyres are worn, it may well be worth it. And we're not going to have a clue, David.
Exactly right, yes. It's also partly dependent on how quickly you get those up to temperature. So are we at that tipping point where the slicks will work? Will they cut through what limited water is on the road? We've got more heading for the pit lane, including Lewis Moreno out of 5th. You've got Gyuming Kim out of 14th place as you look there at 45 Nissan, which is the car already with its time penalty to add to it. Albi Shahab, that's Lewis Moreno going back into the race as he heads down the hill in the pit lane, the endurance pits. 22.5 minutes on that clock. But right now, Andika Maulana it is who leads the way.
Now, I don't know whether that was him pulling out of his box, in which case that was a pretty short stop, and that would suggest no tyre change. But he's still got a lot of trundling to do. Give us a good opportunity, therefore, to see how Brendan Dove stacks up when Lewis Moreno comes out the pits, because Moreno wasn't that far behind on lap 1. Here is Brendan Dove now. Brendan coming into the chicane, and yeah, so it's going to be close, isn't it? The pit lane is so long. Moreno is still indicated as though he's in the pits, so that means he hasn't yet got to Eau Rouge, got to the crossing of the river. Now he goes out the pits. Oh, I think he's going to be ahead, so it hasn't quite worked out for Brandon Dove in the way that he perhaps would like.
Okay, that's interesting, isn't it? Because when he pitted, he was ahead of everybody. There is Lewis Moreno. Don't forget, he was, 6th when he came in. He blasts back onto the racetrack and, as Ben rightly says, stays ahead then of Brandon Dove. So, we've been looking at this thinking that Brandon Dove might have timed it right. He was the race leader. He pitted, but he perhaps found himself in too much traffic in those intervening 40 minutes, effectively, which have compromised the pace. There is the BMW, and that's quite a margin, isn't it?
That is quite a margin, so really didn't find...
So we've been thinking that the... Go on, Ben. So Brandon Dove then is further back in real terms than anticipated. Now, he might gain 1 or 2 places. He certainly should gain one against Shahab in the number 45 Nissan because of his 15-second time penalty. But having led when he pitted, you're now seeing what's happening at the end of all of these stops, and it's not looking as though it's going to go Brandon Dove's way. Strange, all of this, but we'll try and get a handle on it post-race. And Andika Maulana is the race leader from Ferris Stanley, who is still leading his class. Kin Long Lee runs 3rd, Charles Thesira is 4th, Zheng Yin is 5th, Mikko Nassi doing a very good job now in 6th place. And lower down the order, Bank Tanatip, number 22, the Lamborghini here, making his way into the right at La Source. Philippa Boquida is is ahead, but Philippa Boquida looks as though the chance of winning the AM Championship is going to have to go down to the final race of the year as well. Wide over the strip and over the run-off tarmac there goes Bank Tanatip. Makes the climb up towards Les Combes now as the clock ticks on down. And actually it almost looks on this section of the circuit as though the weather is worsening.
I will be able to find out once I get back into the game whether it is or not. It seemed to be pretty stable at 30% falling rain and 30% wet track. So one of the things that actually James Baldwin, world's fastest gamer turned British GT driver, has commented on, because he's been using Assetto Corsa Competizione a lot for testing and for getting himself up to speed with all the different tracks. And he said it is bang on for the dry conditions, but when it comes to the wet conditions, it still doesn't quite simulate what he felt at, I think Snetterton was his first wet round. And he's actually said there is more grip in the sim still than there is in the real world. And also, it doesn't quite develop in the same way, and it doesn't have the offline, online variants that you might find in the real world, where actually online is greasier than offline because there is no rubber down. We have had an explanation from Kunos during the Nürburgring Europe race that if the track is rubbered up, then there'll be a wetter, slippier line, but if the track is brand new, then there won't be. But ultimately, that's not something that I've ever felt, and certainly James was commenting on that as well.
But again, it shows just how much has gone into the creation of the game itself, and what we're enjoying is the platform here. Andika Maulana getting away up front in the race lead. You're looking at Yatlam Law, 10th in the BMW. He was another early stopper, wasn't he, at the same time as Brandon Dove, in fact, right at the very start of the race. But neither of those BMW drivers have really benefited out of all of this. So Luis Moreno is currently the best of the stoppers. Whoops, more drama at Eau Rouge. That is Masatoshi Kaneko getting it wrong in the Audi.
Keeping it off the track, but then very difficult to rejoin. They should know from their heads-up display the next car behind and how far away that car is. So be able to reference that to then pull back onto the track at the right moment.
Kaneko, incidentally, is another of the newcomers, isn't he? So, first time out in the championship, but getting it wrong. As you look there at 117, now that is Kelvin Chen's Porsche, a long way down within the AM class. Russell Ray's Audi is 21st as it comes up towards La Source. Is he going to be able to go through? Yep, or stays ahead, rather, really, of the Bentley there in the hands of Jordan Sibaras, the Australian. So, Sibaras falls behind Russell Ray's. The Filipino runs in the pro class in the Audi.
So here's the thing to consider right now. At the start of the race, they were doing 226s in similar conditions to what we're seeing now. Now the leaders are all in the 30s. Ying Zhen, who I'm not sure who... no, he wouldn't have pitted yet. He's still in the 28s, but basically everybody else is able to run in the 30s only. So they're losing 3 to 4 seconds a lap. If I hadn't pitted already, would be going into the pits and getting a fresh set of tyres on. It would be a lot faster. You'll lose a lot of time, but you'll be a lot faster per lap to be able to make up that time. But it's only around now it's going to work, because any later you won't have the race time to be able to do it.
And when you say new tyres, are you still thinking wets, or is slicks going to have an advantage? It doesn't look as though the rain is any less, does it?
No, exactly. The conditions, the percentages in the game are saying it's exactly the same as it was at the start. So,
right. So
yes, we've got a racing line, but it's not actually offering kind of more drier grip.
Okay, next question for you. The pace of Luis Moreno relative to Brandon Dove. Is that gap coming down as you look there at Ferris Stanley under attack from Kin Long Lee? This is for second in the race, and Lee loses it going into La Source, so round it goes. So Kin Long Lee, second in the championship, has a spin, rejoins, doesn't actually lose out of all of that, other than a bit of time relative to Ferris Stanley, and of course to his class rival Andika Maulana. He got away with that very lightly, didn't he?
Well, there was contact, but from what I think is a back marker.
Yes,
I'm not sure what
indeed.
he was doing there, but just outbraked himself and ran into the back of a podium contender. Not necessarily what you want to do. He's got a 9-second cushion, King Long Lee, to for Sarah behind, so he won't lost position, but not good.
But Moreno
and on that
versus
gap
Dove. Yes.
Yeah. Dove doing a 28.7 last time through, Moreno doing a 28.3. So Moreno the faster at the moment.
Okay, so Dove, of course, pitted early. We assume stayed on that original set of tyres, which have now had quite a lot of hammer as he's been trying to claw his way back into contention. So it looks as though stopping early wasn't the right choice after all. Jordan Cibaras goes over the line in the Bentley, down towards La Source. Still a treacherous track service. Philippa Maqueda has pitted. No AM title going her way today, even in the absence of Carl Peterson.
That's the second pit stop as well, I think, because I'm sure we saw her pit really, really early on in the race, which suggests that she's either had an accident on that last lap or she's trying something different here.
A roll of the dice with 14 minutes to go. What about Andrew Lawrenson's pace? Because after his off and enforced pit stop, he's trying to damage limitation, isn't he, really? He just wants some points out of this.
And Lawrenson didn't... His pace is okay, he's still in the 30s. But he didn't pit, so he didn't seem to need to fix anything in the pit stop. So he sits there in 12th position right now, but with cars around him, Bismarck behind, losing time. Lawrenson seems to be able to keep a bit closer to the pace than the guys around him. But there will Mikko Nassi, for instance, in 6th position, he's made a mistake. Where is he now? Losing lots and lots of time.
And I was about to suggest that he'd been looking really impressive in this, because for somebody that only joined in the championship in the last round, Silverstone, showing much better pace. Philippa Maqueda still in the pit lane as well, so you were suggesting a second stop. This feels like a really long stop for Philippa as well.
Well, it is a long pit lane, isn't it?
There is that to
Kin Long Lee in the pits from 3rd, so he's decided with that contact he's going to bring the car into the pits. Let's see what happens in terms of where he comes out. But everyone's losing so much time on the graphics that I'm looking at. It's crazy that they're still kind of running at this pace, 4 to 5 seconds off what they were able to do earlier on in the race in same conditions.
Now they're going through is Young-Chan Kim, and lower down Russell Ray's up into 20th position. So the Audi R8 that actually in the European equivalent went well around Spa. I think it was a dry Spa, but whips way out wide at Blanchimont. Get that nav on, guides himself back onto the circuit and heads down towards the chicane. Got away with
race
that,
direction
but
seems to be pretty
just
quiet, haven't they? They haven't not been too much going on in race control today, which is quite good.
Although there is typing as you say that, so more news is coming. So this is looking back from Mikko Nassi. Now you were getting concerned that he was losing places, and he has gone across the line. Whoops, that was Russell Ray's fighting the Mercedes. He's a lap down, I suspect, isn't he? Because if that is Mikko Nassi that he's chasing, and Mikko Nassi is further up the order than 20th Russell, there must be a lap between the two of them.
Yeah, makes sense. And you can see how difficult this is now. These are worn wet tyres that are not offering any grip at all. The track conditions similar. We got a little bit of spray being kicked up from the car in front, but not a huge amount, so it's greasy rather than wet, because they don't have intermediate tyres like you would find in other forms of motorsport. It's wet or dry, and these wets, it's not optimum conditions for dries, and it's not a good conditions for wets either. Drive-through penalty for 669 being called.
Indeed, that is Dylan Angwi Chin, and that is for causing a collision with Kin Long Lee. So that was the car that Alexis, you identified, getting into the back of the driver Kin Long Lee, second in the title race within the pro category, for which he has duly been pinged by the race director. Right, 11 minutes to go, and still perhaps a bit surprising that more are not making the stops, certainly out of that leading group. But you kind of wonder whether it's almost... Are they thinking, Ben, it's better the devil that you know? Yes, your pace is going up, but do we sacrifice what we know and a rhythm for a new set of tyres? They've got enough of a gap over those that have stopped. Russell Reyes, in the meantime, lap down, chasing after Luis Moreno, coming under attack on the road there from the treble 7. Niranjan Kumar, Lexus, the Indian driver for IR eSports. And just 10 more minutes of the race to go now. To the outside line goes Kumar. Brave stuff. And can't do it there. So way out wide again, Russell Reyes. And whoops, somebody's got it all wrong up the road, and that's Luis Moreno, another of the spinners. Two drivers getting it wrong. One, I think, might have been Nassi. The other one is the car of Luis Moreno. So there, look, up towards the timing line goes then Russell Reyes, but we've had a bit of a shuffle because of more spinners there coming down towards the chicane itself. Yeah, absolutely. So there you have, back into the race, Charles Fessera. Very spectacular incident we had with those spinners. Now, Charles Fessera is one of that leading gaggle that has now pitted. So let's see where he blends back in. Of course, he's just got to get out of jail free card, in as much as Luis Moreno, who was the best of the stoppers, had a spin. But Fessera will be behind him still, and also behind Kin Long Lee. So Kin Long Lee, number 6 Mercedes, is now the best of the stoppers. Round Bruxelles they turn. And way out wide again is Luis Moreno, so he's throwing this away by errors on his newer set of tyres. Possibly that last spin has also flat-spotted them, taken a bit more life out of them, so that's now being recreated as well, that he's struggling with a set of tyres that have now been rather abused. He heads down the hill, but Luis Moreno is losing ground relative to Kin Long Lee ahead of him.
And Ferris Stanley with a big lose as well, David, on that last lap. Maybe 10 seconds lost to Ferris Stanley, so he's dropped way behind Maulana now. It's not a pit stop, it was a mistake, and everybody just cannot get these tyres working.
No, I mean, Moreno is the one I was just mentioning. He's really struggling. Konassi is coming in for, or has just been given a drive-through. The answer to why we'll find out in due course. But, yeah, fascination. This second stint and the tyres, they just don't work, do they?
Well, because they didn't change them. And I really think they should have done. King Long Lee now losing 9 seconds on this lap from 5th position. He is one of the guys that have pitted. And, you know, we're now to 7 minutes down at the end of the race. You're not going to gain anything by coming in and changing tyres now. You won't have the time to make it up. So you're going to have to struggle through. But when we first mentioned it 25 minutes ago, it would have made sense because the tyres are not able to do a full race distance in these kind of conditions. It's only 30% wet, and it's only 30% coming out of the sky, in which therefore it's just not wet enough for wet tyres to do a full hour.
So the car's becoming an increasing handful, and they're tiptoeing round because the tyres are starting to overheat and to lose life. They'll be looking for the wetter part of the racetrack in order to try to cool them. There is Kin Long Lee. Now, he is the best of the stoppers, but the lap times again suggesting that he stayed on that original set, so he has still lost ground relative to Andika Maulana, and of course Long Lee had a spin anyway, didn't he?
And I don't really know if anybody's out there on half-decent tyres. Maybe Yatlan Law, I can't remember when he pitted, but he's in the 28s still. Most people 29s and 30s, 31s, really, really struggling. Just 3 cars left to pit now. Our top 3 in the race, Maulana, Stanley, who's 16 seconds back, and Zen.
Yeah, exactly right. Where is Brandon Dove out of all of this? He's in 6th place, but not the best of the stoppers, 3rd of the stoppers. Thus far, down the hill there goes Kin Long Lee, who needs to be fundamentally ahead of Andika Maulana. Well, that's not going to happen seemingly, but he is outscoring Andrew Lawrenson, which is good news for him, or consolation if you like. There is Luis Moreno, trying to get his way up past Young Chan Kim. So there is Kim, and he is, remember, recovering after a drive-through earlier on in the race. So 21st he runs, but that's not really a true reflection of his pace, Ben, is it?
No, not really. He should be way up the field, but he had that drive-through penalty, and we didn't see what happened, but he was accused of multiple accidents at Eau Rouge. Andika Maulana into the pits, our race leader. No point in changing tyres, so this is just going to be a compulsory stop and start. And Ferris Stanley and Ying Zhen are the only other two to do so. So our first of our stoppers, Kinlong Lee. Where does Maulana and Lee come out? Lee looks well up the road. Big slide through Blanchimont, just about gathers it up. Not being penalised for track limits there because he did not gain an advantage over his best lap. It's quite difficult actually, conditions for the computer to kind of work out what is good and what is bad track limits. So it's a nice system. I really like it, but certainly wet conditions, it's harder for the computer to work it out. Let's see what happens between Kinlong Lee and Maulana, who says out already. So Maulana coming up the hill already.
Yeah, I mean, Maulana should be able to keep the race lead, shouldn't he? Because he was ahead anyway. Plus, Kinlong Lee had lost time with that spin, so it would have to be a pretty pox pit stop for Andika Maulana to really lose out to Kinlong Lee. But there is Lee, and he is in a rhythm. So back into a stint goes Andika Maulana. This gives Ferris Stanley the race lead once more. It's a phony lead over Ying Zhen because they've yet to stop. So it really is Maulana over Lee. Andika Maulana just now needs really to keep his nose clean. He cannot afford to put a wheel wrong with 3 3/4 minutes to go.
Ferris Stanley, Ying Zhen, the last of our two stoppers. Where will they fall into line? There seems to be a big part of the circuit where there are no cars right now. This is very nice for Kinlong Lee, not having to worry about too much traffic. We haven't lost that many cars. I need to go scroll to the bottom of the screen and to find out exactly how many people are out of this race. Philippa Bakida has retired, so that is significant for that AM Championship. Keeps it alive, though, for Carl Pedersen, who's too busy at work to be able to partake in this race. But it'll go down to the wire in that AM Championship, and that'll give him perhaps a little bit more desire to make sure he's free for the final round. Dylan Ang Wee Chin out of the race. Guyam Kim, again a retirer. We've seen him retire a couple of times. Sai Prithvi is back out onto track, but he's a long way down. Solifrin Raleigh, Nigel Chuang and Nakib Aslan, the other retirees.
Okay, and you've got the top two into the pits now, so everybody serving that regulation stop. Ferris Stanley then is, according to that, having completed it, and Ying Zhen also completing the stop. So there is Ferris Stanley on his way down the pit lane, but Ben had made the point. He'd already lost a massive chunk of time to Andika Maulana, and look, he's only on the inside of La Source now as he makes the run down the endurance pits. So he's going to be certainly second. Could it be third to Kinlong Lee, who is charging now? We have got 2 minutes and change on the clock. Is this going to be the last lap, or can the race leader Andika Maulana squeeze one more out of it then?
Maulana's 15 seconds into the lap, so I would presume that on a near 2.5 minute lap that this is the last lap, and therefore these two have left it very late to get their pit stops done. Stanley now coming to the exit, as on the right hand side Kinlong Lee takes over second position.
He does indeed, although Ferris Stanley is going to be concerned really with leading his class, isn't he? So inevitably we talk about this as an overall situation, but you've got the class positions of note, but is he going to hang on to it? It's really Ferris Stanley versus Brandon Dove, isn't it? So is he ahead of the BMW? That's the whole key to it, as the car's now...
I think so. Brandon is behind, isn't he? That was Moreno who just came through. So Stanley definitely has lost time. The strategy was not good for him to lose out to Moreno. The Nissan has made up huge ground over where they were before the pit stop. So Moreno gets up to third, Dove down to fifth, and Stanley versus Dove for the last lap.
Now, don't forget that Moreno had a big spin, didn't he? And he had an off at Bruxelles, so it's been a really good recovery by Luis Moreno there in the Nissan. The best result that he's had thus far is 15th place, and here he is heading for a podium. But actually, Stanley ain't that far ahead of Brandon Dove, is he? 3.4 seconds. There's half a minute on the clock, so is Andika Maulana going to squeeze one more lap out of this as Andrew Lawrenson there loses out to the BMW of Otto Bismarck going up towards Les Combes. Malana's the one we need to look for now to see whether it's going to be the checkered flag for him this time with 20 seconds still to go. But Andika Malana looking as though the race win is heading his way. There is Brandon Dove, look, and he's having to squabble with Yatlam Law rather than go after Stan. Nose to tail, the two BMWs as one, but the clock hit zero, so it is the last lap. Where is Andika Malana then? The BMWs were looking at lower down the order for 5th and 6th places. They're in different classes anyway, as Yatlam Law comes up to have a go at Brandon Dove, but Andika Malana then, the race leader, comes out of the chicane. There's the checkered flag, and Andika Malana scores a second victory of the season in the Mercedes. Another very impressive drive by Andika Malana. Not enough for the championship, with Kin Long Lee taking second. Further down the order, Yatlam Law versus Brandon Dove. They pitted together. They're going to take the checkered flag together, but in what order? Dove just ahead as he squirts out of the chicane up towards the timing line. Flag at the ready, and Brandon Dove is going to be 5th, but 2nd within the AM class, because Ferris Stanley is the man that comes out on top. Andika Malana, the race winner. Kin Long Lee 2nd, Lewis Moreno 3rd, Ferris Stanley 4th, 5th Brandon Dove, and Yatlam Law in 6th place. Well, Andika Malana has done it again, got the pit stop right, shadowed Ferris Stanley for the first half of the race, and at the end of it, Paul Jeffries, he's managed to increase his championship lead. Andika Malana, a 2nd win of the year.
David, a brilliant race. Thoroughly enjoyed our first 60-minute battle of the day. Great stuff from Malana. 2 wins out of 2 races, and Ben Constanduras, that one had a little bit of everything.
I mean, not necessarily the most efficient way to race through that race. I think if they had perhaps some more support from engineers and things like that, around the 25-minute mark, I think they should have been called into the pits and to change those tyres, because it was clear they were losing a lot of time. But nobody took the risk to do that. Nobody took the risk to lose that track time, and therefore they ended up all just limping home, basically.
And this is one of the many aspects of real and virtual racing, isn't it? When you've got weather conditions like rain, you don't know whether it's going to get stronger or the rain's going to go away. As you mentioned in comms, it's trying to second guess the conditions, your rivals and yourself as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and without that kind of second pair of eyes, it's so much harder, because they really wouldn't have a clue what was going on. If they had an engineer watching the pictures that we're watching, listening to us, then there might be, a second set of thoughts. But, these guys are having to hold on to these cars around Spa in a GT3 car that wants to throw itself off the track at every given moment. They don't have, another brain to be thinking about all the permutations. So they're just holding on.
And the upshot for us at home is that makes for a fantastically entertaining battle. Everybody who's joined in the broadcast just now or has been watching from the beginning, thank you very much for being a part of this show. We're racing at Spa-Francorchamps, and Ben and David have just commentated over the Pro and Am Sim eSport drivers. But next up, we've got the real world Pro and Am drivers, and I think in a few short moments we're going to have a quick look at the championship standings ahead of their 4th round of the season. So Kevin C leads the title standing so far in the AM classification. He has got a 20-point advantage over his rivals. So C will be looking for another strong result here at Spa-Francorchamps. And just like the sim racing eSports, we've also got a pro category where Davishan Parayachi is currently the championship leader after a great start to the season over Melvin Moe on 43 points in second. Now Moe was a race winner last time out at Silverstone, at the home of the British Grand Prix, and just like our AM Championship race winner, we spoke to him earlier in the week ahead of this 4th race of the season. Thank you. So, we're here with Melvin Moe, winner last time out at Silverstone. Melvin, must feel absolutely fantastic to have got that first win under your belt.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty close in Monza and also Laguna Seca. I think the first race wasn't really my fault that I was taken up by the back marker. Laguna, I think, was a little bit my fault from my end. I hit the guy and I got a penalty, but I still finished second. So yeah, I was pretty close, and I am really happy to finally got the win in Silverstone last time out.
Yep, and with the win comes the 25 points. So you're now only 19 points away from Division Parayache at the top of the standings. Is this where you go forward and make a championship challenge?
Yeah, I mean, definitely I will continue to push. I think, especially in round 2 in Laguna, it shows that you should never give up, because you just never know what would happen. So I will definitely keep pushing. I mean, it's only 2 races left, and Parayachi has a good lead, but, I will still, do my best and give him the run for his money, for sure.
Fantastic to hear. Now, we've done 3 races, and over the course of this season, we've seen great improvement from all drivers, yourself included. How are you finding the transition from real world to virtual?
I mean, given, during this COVID period, I only actually started proper sim racing this year. So, over the lockdown period, I really put a lot of effort. It wasn't easy because the, actual feeling from driving a race car and in the simulator, it's, in some ways, you use the same movement and, but the feeling you get from a race car is completely different than a sim racing. So it took some time for me to get used to it. But, I'm glad, given all the races so far, I'm, fighting at the front, so I think that's a pretty good sign.
Yeah, doing a great job. And actually talking about the championship, Melvin, it's fantastic to see the Asia region get such a high profile and high level series for the first time. Have you been impressed with the way that the fans have engaged and got involved in the championship?
Yeah, definitely. When GD World Challenge organized the races for Europe, I've been really following as well, and I was really hoping that something like this could happen in Asia, and thankfully, happy to see following as well.
Let's see if the sound is correct, and then we can start.
Hello.
Okay, hey guys, you guys on TV.
ちょっと待って、今ツイートしてます。ツイートします。
Is it tweeting?
Yeah.
That's it.
Is it
Go,
on?
go.
金子さん
Go
お疲れ
ahead.
様
Go
です。
ahead.
短いね。
まさとしさんね。まさとしさん。
Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Best quality so far. So try not to mess up in first lap. That's my goal. That's it. I have a feeling there's going to be a big carnage.
I have a feeling that it's gonna be around you.
I hope I'm not the one who starts it. I have like 100% record of taking out someone in lap 1. So
Yeah, so we both start on the right side, which I don't like. I wanted to be on the left. Left is always safer, don't you think? Like on which you can just cut.
I think it's not safe anymore. I think starting from the pillin is like the safest, to be honest.
今ツイートしたんですけど、ピット出てって前が同じフェラーリのプレッテ君で2人でピューって行ってたら、その前の前にいたアムの AMG がまずプレットを押し出してその後そいつを抜いたらそいつに追突されるというフェラーリ狙ってるやつがいるので、ちょっとレースは気をつけますけれども、後ろからプレット君が来ると思うので、ちょっと彼とうまい具合に一緒に走って上がっていけたらなと思います。レースセットはもう本当に決まってます。本当楽しみです。頑張りま
Just
す。
have to keep it clean. Keep it clean. Keep it clean. Don't hit
definitely.
me. I won't hit you. Don't hit each other. That's it.
Yes, I know. 金子さんの感想。はい、金子さん初レース。
初レース、
初レースの
雨、スパ。
スパウェザー。
楽しかったです。いっぱいスピンしましたけど楽しかった。いっぱいブログありましたけど、最後に頑張りました。よかった。ありがとうございます。
金子さんは僕のボスですはい、チーム曲がり川、はい、
頑張ってますんで
選定頑張ってくださったんで、あと頑張ります。
はい、あと
Watch live stream.
Yep, 5 minutes till start.
5 minutes.
So, till start of
Stay there.
formation.
Stay there.
はい。
Okay, so James is saying that you have to be Matt Solomon.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, 頑張るけど he's pretty fast.
Okay.
I want to beat his brother.
Yeah. Few positions in front.
Don't take him out this race.
He starts P9.
P9.
はい。
This race.
ショーンが P5、P5。
P5.
ショーンの弟さんが What's his name?
Jasper.
Jasper が
P9.
P9。
P9.
で、
J.
僕 P13。テストレースで絡んだ
Oh, we are the fastest brother today.
BMW の方が
Where are the young couple?
Who?
Oh, they're not there. They're not
Yo,
ready.
there's
もう
one.
いつも一緒のユンさんとかもうなんかお友達みたいな人が周りにいっぱいいる
Your phone is blinking.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, because
Okay, you guys should go. 5 minutes.
はい、
Okay.
頑張る
I'll take care of it. I'll take care of it.
頑張る
and made sure that they are taking this as professionally as they would do a real world race has helped his development as well.
Yeah, and I think it's fantastic to see, as Melvin said, everybody coming together in these difficult times as well, and seeing some familiar faces on the track, albeit virtually, has been very, very well received. Now, what we'll do now is we're going to have a quick look at the entry list for this race and see who's going to be taking part in the Real Driver Pro and Am Championship race. We've got a lot of names that you will recognise from the course of this season so far. This is, of course, the fourth of 5 races in the championship this year. So we've got a lot of returning names. And again, Ben, we've said it before and it bears worth repeating. It's massively impressive to see such a wide list of different countries represented in this field, isn't it?
Most importantly on that list is Dan Wells. Louis Pret also is part of it from Monaco, but races over in Asia. But Dan Wells is very, very kind of influential within the series because he's been setting up a lot of the guys' simulators in Asia around Hong Kong and owns a company that does that. So we haven't seen him race in the championship because he's been over in Europe without his simulator. But I'm excited to see. There'll be a lot of expectation on Dan's shoulders because I'm excited to see exactly how well he can perform.
Yeah, they will indeed, and we're getting very close to race start now. So I'm going to hand over to Ben Constanduros and Mr. David Addison.
Paul, thanks very much indeed then as we get set ready for our second race here at Spa-Francorchamps. This is the real race in the TCL GT World Challenge Asia eSports Championship presented by Tarmac Works. Weather conditions better for the real world drivers than we had for the sim specialists. It is, as the guys have been saying, another quality entry, and interesting to hear what Melvin Moe was saying about being new to the sim racing arena, but he's qualified second on this grid, so it's been a very, very good effort indeed. Yet more pace evinced by Melvin Moe, and crucially for the championship, he has put himself up ahead of Dervish and Padiachi. Now, between them in the championship, 62 points to Dervish and Padiachi, 43 to Melvin Moe. It really is a straight fight between those two. Dervish and Padiachi could wrap it up here if he were to win and Melvin Moe be second or lower, because he has got the upper hand, but as we have seen in previous rounds, anything can yet happen. And certainly I agree with what Ben is saying about Dan Wells. We didn't really see the best out of Dan in the European series in lockdown 1, but a very accomplished driver and has spent much of his real world racing career, of course, out in China. And Dan is another of those Brits that rather flies under the radar, Ben, because he's away racing somewhere else that doesn't really get the attention, and he doesn't get the attention he deserves.
Yeah, absolutely, but he's one of those drivers, much like Dennis Lind, who actually we didn't see too much of in Asia. He's got a pedigree of doing this. He's not one of the drivers that is coming to this for the first time and learning, like Melvin Moe was talking about earlier. he's been doing this for a while. He has a company that sorts out simulators, so he really should be at the top of our timing screens.
No pressure then, Dan. Sorry about this. The man that's on pole position is Aaron Borg, the SRT Team Sydney entry.
Which he was
Aaron
last
Borg,
time, I think.
Absolutely so. Another good effort from a driver with karting and the Toyota GT86 One Make Series experience. Melvin Moe lining up with him at the front of the grid. Experience from China GT, and somebody that knows the real Spa relatively well because he did take part in the Spa 500 here, that TCR race last year. So this is a circuit at which Melvin Moe has real world experience. Dan Wells lines up third on the grid. Lamborghini Super Trofeo, TCR, Formula Pilota China, you name it. And then Davishan Padiachi, the championship leader, champion-elect, dare one say, is going to start fourth on this grid. So the sun is shining for the moment. I think we're anticipating this is going to be a fully dry race, though, are we not?
Yes, exactly. So just to make life a little bit easier for the guys that have perhaps a little bit less experience in holding onto the cars, we saw how hard it was for our sim drivers, and it's one of the big challenges that all of the professional sim drivers have enjoyed so much about ACC, is that the weather conditions have been so realistic, have been so challenging, that people are actually coming across from other platforms just to try out the weather conditions, because they are unlike anything that you could even do. So it's fantastic to have that ability and realism within ACC.
There's another part of the SRO commentary team, one John Watson, who is, if you look on Wikipedia, famed for shouting, "I don't do highlights." Other platforms, "I don't do rain," is what you're saying. Yes. So, the car's weaving around, trying to get some warmth into the Pirelli tyres. Set to go racing, and it is Aaron Borg then on pole position. Now, what does Melvin Moe do in all of this? Does he just bank points, or does he go for broke? What does Davishan Padiachi do? Is he going to be able to sit there behind Melvin Moe and still take a championship? We're going to have to keep a very close eye on that as the race unwinds. So where can Davishan Padiachi be relative to Melvin Moe, even if Melvin Moe is ahead? In the wet, it seemed to be the front engine grunt and go cars that had the advantage, but in these dry, warmer, sunnier conditions, what are we expecting, Ben? Is it going to be a front engine monster or something with aero, which is going to be the car to have?
It should balance out a bit more towards the Mercedes and the Audis. The Mercedes generally seems to be the most solid across all of the tracks. It seems to have not a slight advantage because the BOP that SRO establishes, which then gets put into this game, works incredibly well. Interesting to see very little in terms of McLaren representation in the top. Well, actually, I don't even see a McLaren. But I would have thought that would have been a pretty good car. And I think the one kind of excuse for Dan Wells, I'll give him this already, is that he's in a Lamborghini. And the Lamborghini is not necessarily the easiest car. It's not from lack of straight line speed, more than getting it through the corners.
Well, that Lamborghini could well be the joker in the pack here. Whoops, somebody's off the road already there. But we did have, of course, that Lamborghini going nicely in the qualifying period for Dan Wells to be third on that grid, didn't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And well ahead of any other Lamborghini. Adley Fong we've seen do pretty well in the Lamborghini, up at the top 5 last time out at Silverstone, but 15th he will start on the grid. And there is a lot of Mercedes at the top of the timesheets at the moment. And just, you were talking about Padiachi, and he has this big advantage in the championship of 19 points. But ultimately, he I don't want to be rude, but he just was very calm and collected through those first couple of races. He didn't get himself involved in accidents, but he wasn't necessarily the fastest. And I feel as though the field has slightly caught up. They've become slightly less chaotic, and therefore I think Padiachi will struggle to replicate what he managed in the first 2 races. He only scored 12 points at Silverstone, and that might be more of where he might expect to be in this race, rather than a dominating 25-pointer. What Melvin Moe needs to do is make sure he's got the 25 points in his pocket to keep that championship alive.
Absolutely right. So it does need Padiachi to win this. So if Melvin Moe can stay ahead, it is going to force it to the
Padiachi fourth,
the last
Dan
round.
Wells third, and then the 2 Mercedes of Melvin Moe and Aaron Borg on the front row. as you say, Borg very fast on one lap, but has picked up just 25 points. It's third in the championship, but a decent chunk away from the top two.
So we're set to go racing then in our fourth round of the championship, the TCL GT World Challenge Asia eSports Championship, presented by Tarmac Works. We're at Spa, the sun is shining, the finish line is coming out of the chicane, the start line is on the run past the endurance pits, the old pits, down towards Eau Rouge. Pole position, the Mercedes of Aaron Borg. Melvin Moe lines up alongside, also in second row. Dan Wells then in the yellow-nosed Lamborghini, and Duvish Padayacci, who is going to be fascinating in this to see what he uses as the strategy. Does he go for broke, or does he just sit tight and bank points? Well, we are about to find out. 1 hour of racing, mandatory pit stops. We are set for action. We've had plenty of drama from the real world drivers thus far in the championship. There is more to come as the cars now rumble their way downhill. If the race director is happy, he'll flick the lights to green, and we will go racing then as they get to the timing line. It's go, it's blast off. Better start by Borg than Melvin Moe, but Dan Wells tries to squeeze up on the inside line, can't do it. Padayacci, though, he's on his toes. Round the outside, he's gone third, and straight away breathing down the neck of Melvin Moe to try to get second place. So Duvish Padayacci is on the attack. Whoops, that's Sean Tong off the road in the Audi. He's back on. Dan Wells has lost another place as well. I think Jie Tong Liang has got past him. But look at the way that Aaron Borg is away like a robber's dog.
I have no idea how Sean Tong managed to hold on to that car through that little kink on the Kemmel Straight on the grass, and the car slewed back onto the track, and somehow he held it all together. Fantastic, brave driving, and now there's a little bit of a queue forming because Melvin Moe hasn't quite got his car up to speed on this first lap, and he's got a lot of cars breathing down his neck.
Borg serves up a great opening lap, doesn't he? Aaron Borg getting away. Look at the margin he's pulled already, over 0.7 of a second. That's going to build as the cars drop now down towards Borg and off the road. That was Padayacci. Now, that I think might have been a connection problem because Padayacci suddenly disappeared from the road, disappeared from the leaderboard. And if that's a connection failure for the championship leader, Ben, we just had drama.
He's gone. He's gone. He's no longer in the server. And as you say, connection issue there. That was not a flying car. That was simply the computer trying to predict where he was, but he was no longer. So frustrating. But that is the kind of thing that happens in sim racing. You don't necessarily have mechanical failures so much, but you do have hardware failures at home. And Australia has let him down.
Right, so Melvin Moe needs to win this race now to outscore Padayacci as far as the championship is concerned. Even if he's second, he will still not go to Suzuka with more points than Padayacci, but he will be one behind him. But a race win would put him ahead in the title race, and Tong's had a second drama of the opening lap. Now the Audi spins coming out of Blanchimont.
And again, I think he held it out of the barrier. He's having a fraught first lap, and I'm sure those tyres are not so happy. But again, I think he kept away from people crashing into him.
And there's more mayhem at the chicane. We've got cars exploring all sorts of lines, some of which are relevant, but not for Spa. And there to the inside line, diving down towards La Source, is the BMW of Tenku Ejenlei. He comes to this sixth in the championship in his class, in the pro class. Tenku Ejenlei then powering his way downhill, and with drama on that opening lap, the BMW then powers ninth uphill, and more drama. Who's that taken out of it? Was that possibly out of that leading group? Because one of those Mercedes did have a certain Melvin Moe look to it, so there's been even more drama at the top of Radion, Ben.
Jiatong Lang is stationary, so a problem for him. We've got plenty of cars in pit lane. Anterior's Ao, Alex Ao, Heng Ming, Avon Chen again in pits on lap 1 like he was at Silverstone. Dominic Ang is in the pits, Yuki Taniguchi, Hideo Yasuka and Freddie Ang. So huge problems for many, many cars on this first lap.
All right, tell me who isn't in the pits. How about that? It'll be quick.
Exactly, yeah.
There you've got number 7 Mercedes. That's Melvin Moe. So he did survive the dramas. He wasn't involved, but look at the way he's caught up to Aaron Borg. Not only has he caught up, he's going for the lead, and he's taking Dan Wells with him. Now, Dan Wells, we've been making the point, has not raced in the championship thus far. So if he were to get ahead of Melvin Moe, he'd be taking points away from those that are regulars in the championship. But Dan cares not one jot. He's after a race win to prove to people just how good he is.
Leipart Motorsports, that's why he drives the Lamborghini. he could almost be driving for his own team, such as the amount of people he's been supporting over in Hong Kong, getting various sims set up. I did notice actually that Darrell Young had his sim set up in his confined hotel in Macau. Of course, Macau Grand Prix last weekend, and he was racing in that, but he was able to do some practice because he brought his sim along with him.
Didn't have a very happy time, did he, sadly? Got a penalty in the qualifying race, did Darrell. Right, Melvin Moe drops back a little bit from Aaron Borg, but he's staying in touch as they come into the chicane. Third is Dan Wells, but I think Dan is the one that's got the pace here because he's managed to claw his way back onto terms with Melvin Moe, and Melvin is having to think about defending rather than attacking. It's Billy Lowe fourth, Jia Tongliang is in fifth, and then sixth, Tenku Ijanlei. Seventh currently is Kelvin Say. Eighth is Alistair Young. Ninth is Sean Tong, despite his many spins, and Matt Solomon rounds out the top 10.
And Billy Lowe sitting there in fourth position. That's a very strong result. Best of the AMs, and that would then keep that championship alive going into Suzuka as well, because he would take points out of Kevin Say, who is down in seventh position and a couple of positions back. Third in the AM category, Nin Ling, down in 10th position, but in 7th or 8th in the championship.
Yeah, if Lowe were to win and Say be second, Kelvin Say would keep the championship lead. It would be down to 13 points going into the last round. So it's important for Billy Lowe that he stays ahead as you now look at Dan Wells giving a very energetic chase of Melvin Moe here to the point where Aaron Borg is getting away. So the Mercedes 1-2, Lamborghini 3 is the order. What's going on lower down there? You've got Andrew Harrianto's Bentley, and that is about to be mugged, I fear, by Aaron Lim's BMW that comes up round the outside approaching Les Combes.
Yeah, and they had Matt Solomon ahead of them, who had made a mistake on that last lap and decided to go into the pits. Louis Pret also in the pits in his Ferrari, as is Darrell Young. Pret's picked up a penalty for collisions on the first lap, unfortunately, so he's a stop-go of 10 seconds for causing multiple collisions on lap 1 at Eau Rouge. Pretty much copy and paste from what we saw in the sim race.
And breaking news, Pagliacci's house has lost all internet connection. That's the reason for the retirement. So, yeah, the last thing you need, Australian technology has let him down. So, really disappointing for Dimash and Pagliacci, but fingers crossed, he'll be back for that final round, and he's not out of the championship hunt yet. Now, what he wants to be seeing is Dan Wells taking points off Melvin Moe. He wants Melvin Moe to drop like a stone and give away points, doesn't he?
Absolutely, and it does look as though Dan Wells has the ability to do that right now. The Lamborghini, unfortunately, I have a feeling it's not as fast where it needs to be. It's not as fast down the Kemmel Straight because of the BOP, and it's not as fast in Blanchemont. Those are the easiest places to make the pass. He's faster in the wiggly stuff where he can't get past the Mercedes.
But right now, it remains the car of Aaron Borg leading the way. A third last time out as his best of the season. Melvin Moe second. This man, Dan Wells, third as he plunges downhill once again. Flicks left, flicks right through Eau Rouge. The Mercedes dancing a little bit ahead of him as Melvin Moe has to control the slide. And Dan Wells has got the run on him coming up the Kemmel Straight now. Can the Lamborghini dive past? He's in the slipstream, pulls to the outside line nice and early. Dan Wells is almost level. Can he break late? Can he go round the outside? Yes, he can. Fantastic move. Dan Wells goes second.
That was super strong. On the brakes as well, and I think even Melvin Moe perhaps gave it up a little bit earlier to allow Dan Wells past, and knowing that he can now sit behind the Lamborghini, learn a little bit from what Dan is doing, even though it's not the same car, save fuel as well if we need to, and tow on to Aaron Borg, who so far is having a race without trouble in a way that he has not done so far this season.
But I fear trouble is coming in the shape of that Lamborghini of Dan Wells, is it not? Because now that Dan is up into second place, he's going to be going after the race leader, all guns blazing. Melvin Moe drops to third, therefore, drops points, therefore, as far as the championship is concerned. And there you've got the Lamborghini of Dan Wells turning its way now into the piff-paff as we approach the end of the first 10 minutes of the race. Now, what's going on lower down the order? We've talked about one or two penalties, and one has also come for Adderley Fong, a drive-through because he got involved on the opening lap with Dominic Ang. So Adderley Fong cops the penalty.
Yeah, unfortunately, there was a lot of accidents, as you said. That was at turn 6, so that is double gauche, I think, or speaker's corner, something like that. We didn't see that one, but there was other accidents at the end of the lap as well. Perhaps from just avoidance of Sean Tong's various pirouettes. But I think race control still working through all those various accidents.
Yes, I'm sure there's more news to come. Now, Kang Ling, you said it had pitted early. Kang, 5th in the championship. He is the best of those that have made a stop. But the fear, I guess, for him is that he picked up damage. That's why he stopped early.
I think so. Anyone who went to the pits on that first lap, I think, went in because they were involved in an accident. Evan Chen also doing the same thing. Remember, Evan was caught up halfway through lap 1 at Silverstone. Yeah. One of the laundry house... Well, one of 2 laundry house cars in this race, laundry house being a sim team and mainly having sim drivers in our previous race, but has Evan Chen and Matthew Marsh in this race. Matthew's in 12th position, so far so good, without too many issues, running behind James Russell.
Yeah, Matthew, another one that was involved in the Macau Grand Prix in his journalistic broadcasting role, and he's 12th at the moment. As you look at the next battle raging on here, as number 10 of Alistair Young goes through on the inside of Tenku Ejenlei, picks up a place a little bit deep into Lecombe, but Alistair Young then, Alex Young's son, gains a position that puts him now up into 6th, and his next target is Jasper Tong in the BMW, Sean's brother.
We haven't got Alex Young in the race, have we? We've got Alistair, but no Alex.
Number 20 in the entry list, but I must confess I didn't see whether he got through the qualifying session.
Yeah, I don't think this server. Let me check to the bottom of the list, but no, seems to be missing.
Right, so right now the lead gap 2.4 seconds. It is still Aaron Borg ahead. Now don't forget, Aaron Borg is 3rd in the championship. So with the demise of Division Padiachi and Aaron Borg leading the way and Melvin Moe dropping back into 3rd, Aaron Borg right now is putting himself in a really good position, isn't he? I know he's a long way back in terms of points. We've got more dramas going on here. Billy Lowe.
That was Melvin Moe's slow that we just quickly flicked onto for about 2 seconds. And he's lost 12, 13 seconds and lots of places. Watch him descend that bar on the left-hand side. It may settle down now. 8th spot, I think, he falls down to.
Okay, so he was clipped by Billy Lowe, who's up into 3rd place in the Audi. But what caused Melvin Moe's dramas? Well, he looks like he's got the pace back all well, doesn't it?
Yeah. So
except there's a big spin, Melvin Moe. Moe, dear, manages to hold on to it, but that could have been really nasty.
Lent on that rear tyre when it either was still dirty or cold, and it just didn't grip in the way he felt it would do. It could also be damaged, but he decides to carry on, and it is worth... you really do feel that if you go offline, or if you go onto the grass and then you go into a high-speed corner like that and throw it in like you would usually, the car does not stick, and the traction control wasn't quite set high enough to save the Mercedes. So Melvin's now got some work to do. He should know, he should have seen that Padiachi was no longer in this race, and this was about collecting points for the end, for that championship showdown in Suzuka. But now he sits 9th position. It's just going back to Padiachi, who's now watching rather than competing.
Absolutely. And Melvin Moe is 9th, which is 7th in class, but if he has another drama and gets dumped out of the top 10 in pro, he's not scoring any points at all, so he's got to regroup here. Easier said than done, I know. The lead gap has come down as well, and Billy Lowe continues his charge. Now, he is leading the AM class from championship rival Kevin Say by the proverbial country mile, and 3rd in the class is Nan Lin in the Toro Racing Mercedes. But Billy Lowe's Audi looking really strong at the moment, and to be 3rd overall, that's a long way up the order. He'll be getting a nosebleed, he's that far up, because Billy Lowe's best thus far has been a 9th.
Yeah, it's really impressive stuff. He's definitely put his work into learning this Spa circuit. It just flows so well. And is that Melvin Moe just ahead? No, it's not. That's a back marker. But he's getting caught up behind the Mercedes back marker, waiting to see if race control have got any eyes on what happened to Melvin Moe, whether it was just a mistake from him or whether there was a little bit of contact. If there was contact, it would have been with Billy Lowe.
Yeah, I think I'm right in saying that's Frank Hughes, Craft Bamboo Mercedes, just ahead, which is a back marker a lap down. We've had Aaron Lim serve his pit stop. Also in has been Philip Tang. And there Billy Lowe goes through. Now, we said it in the sim race that, of course, Audis had looked strong in the European equivalent eSports races that we had in Lockdown 1, if you like. Well, they were like in both races. So what can Billy Lowe do here? Again, it does suggest that Audi and Spa a good combination, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think they are. Certainly the way that the balance of performance works from SRO implemented into this game by Kunos, it does replicate real life, and some cars are stronger in different conditions, some cars are stronger at different tracks, and we know from the real world that Audi are good here, and therefore there's no reason why it shouldn't be replicated in ACC as a platform.
And of course, Spa 24 hours, the Total 24 hours of Spa in October, a Porsche win, but only 11th and 12th for Porsches at the moment. Matthew Marsh ahead of very, very experienced Porsche racer Yui Tan, the Singaporean. So 11th and 12th they run as you look there at Alistair Young. Now he is going nicely, currently 4th in the Lexus, 3rd in class. Good battle behind as well, involving Jasper Tong and Tenku Asian Lei. So the two BMWs have got themselves together, and then the recovering Sean Tong is up behind them. So BMW, Audi, 5th, 6th, 7th.
That's a great battle actually, because they were trying to go 3 wide going down into Brussels there. It's interesting to see that the BMWs, after this update on ACC, seem to be a slightly stronger car than they were in the previous iteration. I wonder whether BMW as a manufacturer has had a quiet word, and they do have an eSports department within BMW Motorsport, and they may have had a quick word to find out, oh dear, this is a bit of a mess.
It is, and one of those was Billy Lowe. Sorry to interrupt you, but Billy Lowe there in the Audi getting involved. Tenku Asian Lei into the wall in avoidance, but Billy Lowe, who was leading the AM class, has got going again, but he has caused mayhem by going off the road, and Jietong Liang's Mercedes, which was a lap down, was involved in that strife as well. So, Ben, you're going to have another shuffle around of that leaderboard.
Yeah, absolutely. So Billy Lowe descends the leaderboard. As you say, Tenku Asian Lei was delayed. Alistair Young and Jasper Tong got out the throttle but survived any contact. And I think that was it in terms of the drivers that were involved in that one. But I would suggest that Tenku Asian Lei's BMW is hampered now after a little tap on one side, but then a big old clonk against the barrier on the other.
And Billy Lowe is all over him like a cheap suit, isn't he? Over the curb, and to the outside line is the BMW. The Audi retakes its position on the inside, goes back to 7th then, Billy Lowe. But that was quite a moment that he had there. And Melvin Moe is right on the back of these two. So Melvin Moe is now being able to potentially buy back places as we have still 43 minutes of this race to go.
I wonder whether that was... we did see the Frankie... we did the Craft Bamboo car being lapped, but I wonder whether it ever got lapped, or in fact whether there was contact between Billy Lowe and Frank Yu instead.
I don't think it was Frank Yu, that was my mistake. I think it was the car of Jiatong Liang which was involved in that incident with Billy Lowe. So it was a Craft Bamboo Merc, double digit, wrong one, sorry. And I think they did get themselves together. So Jiatong Liang, who was already on the back foot, even further delayed as a consequence of that drama. Jasper Tong, however, in 67 BMW is going very strongly right now, up into 4th place, 11th last time out. Of course, he missed the opener, and right now he's ahead in this, if you like, inter-Nissan fight, because he's got his brother behind him, the more experienced Sean Tong.
How is Sean Tong still there after that first couple of corners? Pirouetting twice on lap 1 and already back up to P5 and with good pace. So definitely the Audi is the car to have today. That's certainly working well. And just look how much smaller it is than the BMW. The BMW is such a beast of a car, but also seemingly running okay around Spa.
The BMW is another, of course, with a good pedigree in the 24 hours here. So I know we're only doing a 1-hour race, but it is the type of car that's had 24-hour success in seasons past. Valkenhorst as an example. And way out wide, understeering himself off the road there, Jasper Tong. Sean Tong actually not close enough to gain out of that. And if anything, I think he was measuring his pace against his brothers and almost came a cropper.
30-second penalty for car 11. We're still on lap 1 here, so that is Sean Tong. Unfortunately, he's going to be picking up a 30-second penalty for a collision with Adley Fong on lap 1. And there's still plenty more to come because we've seen other accidents too. But that's a shame for Sean Tong. He didn't really look like he was in control on lap 1. So how he can get a penalty for being out of control, I'm not quite sure. Tongue in cheek.
Yeah, well, it did, and also for causing mayhem. Going back to Billy Lowe's drama, that cost him the AM lead. It's put Kelvin Say up ahead of him, and so Kelvin Say would be champion if things stay as they are. As long as Say is ahead of him, first and second, or second and fourth, then that's enough to give Kelvin Say the championship. As you look at Yuki Taniguchi there in 16th place in the Nissan.
A computer games tycoon, business owner, always kind of questioned whether how that affects his board meetings when he's been a racing driver one weekend, and I think he had to pull out of some world races because there was concern over his role and importance in his company, and putting himself in danger by going racing. So I think that obviously that was a few years ago when he was involved in the World Touring Car Championship, but it's presumably now been resolved. It always fascinates me what all these different gentleman drivers do in their day-to-day life to be able to go racing. Something that we kind of slightly ignore these days, but certainly Mr. Taniguchi, very much a high-profile name in the world of computer games, just not sim racing.
Yes, you have some fascinating ones, really, in the GT arena, perhaps more, because that's where you find more AMs these days, more wealthy AMs that can go racing. The Battle of the Tongs continues, doesn't it, there, with Jasper ahead of Sean. This is for 4th place, and it's a proper fight that has got itself also with back markers around. So Sean Tong's Audi then goes into the pith path on the tail of the BMW of brother Jasper. Up front, Dan Wells is just creeping back onto the tail, is he not, of Aaron Borg. It's still a second and a half. He's not riding shotgun, as it were. He's not crawling all over the back, but the gap has come down just a touch between the top two.
Little seesaw of who does the best lap between those two. Last time out, it was Aaron Borg who was faster than Dan Wells, but the last time I looked, it was the other way around. So, as you say, the gaps, when there is a seesaw, it is larger, and Aaron Borg loses 0.4 of a second on that last lap, so he then now goes slower than Dan Wells on that last lap, and the gap reduces by 0.1 of a second. Ultimate lap time, 18.6 at the moment. Oh, and contact there.
That's the back marker getting in the way of Jasper Tong, who says, get out of my way, runs the Mercedes off the road coming out of the chicane. Jasper Tong goes through, Sean Tong chases after him as they head down towards La Source now. But is that going to be, well, the Mercedes, look at that, a lapped car outbrakes Jasper Tong, and that's going to give the opportunity to Sean. Yes, gains a place, goes ahead, but the Mercedes really should not be outbraking a car that's just lapped it, and drama comes down the hill, and it takes Sean Tong into the barriers this time, the Mercedes off the racetrack as well. Still trying to identify which Mercedes that was, but that was not acceptable, was it?
No, we'll soon be able to see exactly who that was from the timing screen, but I feel as though he's way, way down the order. Yeah, Jiatong Lang it is, who is last in the race. So race control may have to get pretty strong with him, because that was unnecessary, and he was involved in a battle that he shouldn't have been. Now,
absolutely.
Sean Thompson somehow seems to still be going, ploughed through the wall, and seems to still be running relatively fast. Now, he does have a penalty, but it's not been shown yet on our TV graphics.
Yes, he'd copped a 30-second penalty, hadn't he? But now he'll certainly have picked up damage. That's where we had the sizable Lamborghini accident in the Super Trofeo race before the 24 hours this year, that section of circuit. There is Sean Tong. Well, he's carried on, but yeah, Jiatong Liang has a case to answer out of all of that. He was getting in the way, he was outbraking quicker cars that had lapped him and then getting involved in an accident. So race control will have a long look at that. But Sean Tong's Audi's pace will be compromised. And look, he's being caught now by Tenku Ijanlei as the cars go to the pith path.
So 1.5 seconds now to the good Aaron Borg over Dan Wells. And Alistair Young 19 seconds back. So it really is a two-horse race, isn't it, today? Between those two, and that also shows how far Melvin Moe has dropped out of contention, with Moe being in 8th position to Alistair Young's 3rd.
And
so big change.
And a big slide there from Evan Chen's Porsche. You're looking at Leona Chin, but Evan Chen behind had a huge moment and has lost a place in the process to Dominic Ang. So there, look, the two Porsches have done a switcheroo.
Billy Lowe came into the pits that last lap. It looks like he's come out ahead of our previous lead pitter, Kang Ling, who's 19th. Dominic Ang has got ahead of Evan Chen in the battle of Porsches for those two. But it does look as though all of those guys that pitted early doors, they were including damage repair as well.
Now, one of the things we had in the sim race was the tyre degradation, as there you see, just to cover this off, Dominic Ang making the move against Leona Chin's Mercedes, and through will go Dominic Ang on the inside line, and Evan Chen will go through as well. Leona Chin forced out wide off the racetrack there. She's back on, but losing a couple of spots. Now, tyre degradation we had on a wet road. What about in the dry, Ben? Are we expecting, as the Porsche's switching around, Evan Chen through, are we expecting drivers here to need another set of tyres in the dry, in the higher temperatures, or can they go the distance?
No, I mean, if you think about real world Spa 24 hours, they can easily do around 55 minutes, I think, per stint, and they sometimes even double stint the tyres. The model of the tyre is so accurate, Pirelli giving all of the data they could possibly find to Kunos, who developed the game, so that the feel and the feel of a race car is so much through the tyres is identical to what the guys feel in real life, and so all of the data for the 2019 tyres and then the 2020 tyres is in this platform, and they should be good. The pace might not stay as high, but it won't be a massive drop off like the wets had, because effectively the wets in the sim race were just being overheated and worn down to slicks.
Right, Sean Tong into the pit lane, so we know he's picked up damage and he's got a time penalty to serve, so he is going to, if he does rejoin actually, because the race is as good as over for him, he's going to fall a long way down the order.
Yeah, interesting. He won't be able to serve that penalty that he's been handed by race control until it's put into the platform, and if it's put into the platform, then we'd see it on the graphic. So a little technical hitch going on there, I think, from race control, because ultimately he can make his pit stop now, and maybe not aware that he's got a penalty for contact, because again he's not seeing it in game and he won't be listening to us. So doing it race as per usual, and then that penalty will appear a bit later on. There it is. Now it appears.
Okay, and you've got Yui Tan on screen at the moment. Yui Tan in 11th place, regular from Carrera Cup Asia, runs way out wide there, going through Stavelo off the racetrack. Louis Pret tries to attack him. Yui Tan, he's raced in Porsche Super Cup, driver coach, corporate day, company owner, kart centre owner, and well versed in Porsches as he has the battle. Kevin Say going through in the number 38 Mercedes, looking as though he's on target here, not only for a class win in the race, but also in the championship.
Yeah, absolutely. No challenges where he needed Billy Lowe around him. Billy Lowe has now pitted though, and yes, we had him in contact and slowed down, but let's see how the strategy plays out, whether Kevin C is able to lap at the same pace as Billy Lowe on a different part of the track. At the moment it's too early to tell, because this is the first lap out the pits for Billy Lowe. But sometimes, as we've seen in previous races, especially with the variance of pace of our real world drivers, it is possible to do a pit stop and do a bit of an undercut halfway through a race.
Indeed so, yes, that pit stop, which is to mirror, if you like, the fact that you get pit stops in the real world racing, can be used to your advantage, and it's been noticeable, hasn't it, since that first race, that drivers are thinking more strategically about the value and when to use it. You're looking there, number 38, Kevin Say, but just looking at the leaderboard, Aaron Borg, race leader. Do we need to worry about his internet connection, Ben? Because that little yellow bar has got quite large in comparison to others.
I would worry more about Nan Lin's that's turned red.
Oh yes, quite. Fair point, fair point.
Yeah, the yellow it's not as good as the best, but it's not a total disaster. You may worry about his pace though. When he comes and finishes his lap in a few seconds' time, that gap is going to be smaller than it was. It will confirm in just a few seconds' time. Actually, it's gone out again. So they've obviously been compromised with traffic. Midway through that lap, he was a second slower than his previous best. But then Dan Wells obviously got slowed up by the same bit of car that was slowing Aaron Borg at the start of the lap.
It's still rather elasticated, isn't it, that gap? As you say, it's rising and it's falling. Kevin Say, the leading AM, 5th place overall now, doing a very good job. Kevin, who came from European racing initially, he raced for a time in the German Volkswagen Polo Championship. He's raced in Carrera Cup, in GT Asia, in the Audi R8 Cup, in Asian Le Mans. So he's a massively experienced driver, even though he's an AM for our purposes here in the Craft Bamboo Mercedes.
Yeah, I'm not sure how it was all decided who would be AM and who would be pro in this race. It makes sense in the hot lap competition for our sim race that the hot lappers that enter are in one category, and then the the pros that are invited are in a different one, but I'm not sure how they worked it out here.
No, I mean, I have mentioned in the past about Yui Tan being an amateur, which surprised me given his experience of Porsches. However, better brains than ours have worked this out. Felipe de Souza, you're looking at now for the Tarmac eMotorsports squad with the Audi, and he's about to lose to another Audi of Billy Lowe. So Billy Lowe has made his pit stop. Felipe de Souza, we've seen him TCR and WTCR. He comes under attack down towards the chicane. Billy Lowe lines up on the inside, but for the moment, de Souza keeps him at bay.
De Souza presumably was also another of those drivers racing Macau last weekend. And therefore probably compromising the amount of practice that they can put into this particular event because of the way it falls. You just need so much practice, so much commitment. I mean, you see in some of the pro sim drivers, they, even between sessions, will still be lapping, something, again, you can't do in the real world, on a different server so that they can still continue to tweak that setup and exchange information with other drivers.
So de Souza having lost that place to Billy Lowe now, losing a real chunk of time, isn't he? Billy Lowe up into 14th place. And where's our leading pit stopper? It is still Billy Lowe, but he had some damage in the process of serving that stop.
And that's the thing, you know, by being on a different part of the track, he's now catching slower cars that perhaps have not pitted, like Felipe de Souza. So that then can compromise his lap time. His lap time last time, a 2:22. Which is similar lap times to what the cars around him are doing, but because he's pitted, he's kind of out of place. The guys at the head of the field, are doing 2:19s. So, you know, he's losing a huge amount of time stuck behind somebody, but then when he's got clear track, he can then push on.
Dan Wells is being given a 15-second penalty for causing a collision with Darrell Young.
Darrell Young?
What the? So that was on lap 5 of the race, according to race control. But unless that was Darrell Young being lapped, I can't instantly explain why Dan Wells would have been anywhere near him.
Was it perhaps Melvin Moe? Darrell Young and Melvin Moe would have the same livery, wouldn't they? As Melvin Moe comes in to make another pit stop, or his pit stop. Here's a weird one that doesn't happen in real life. Maybe he's wearing the wrong livery. Melvin Moe, and therefore he's got the wrong number on his side of his car. It'd be difficult to do, I think, but it is possible. Because lap 5 was around where Melvin Moe had his accident, wasn't it?
It was. So maybe that's where the slowness had come from, because there'd been a brush between them. Anyway, there is Melvin Moe. We'll try and unravel it all. And there is Melvin Moe, who is going from the F1 to endurance pits, serving the mandatory stop. So it's not been a great race thus far for Melvin Moe, but can he buy back places in the second half of the race? We have, of course, tipped over half distance now, 28 minutes on the clock still.
Being corrected by Mr. Tom Hornsby that actually Darrell Young should be in the VLT yellow machine, so they shouldn't be in different liveries, so there should be no confusion. But Darrell Young's down in 29th position, so probably has had an accident, but I'm not quite sure he was anywhere near Dan.
Interesting. That'll rumble on. So, of course, racing drivers are always innocent, doesn't matter what they do. So Dan, of course, will say, oh, never touched him, Your Honour. Billy Lowe, in the meantime, remains 13th and the best of the stoppers as he comes up through Les Combes. But Dan Wells, yep, there it is. You can see it on the graphic, plus 15 seconds. So the race director is happy with his decision. And unless Dan can somehow argue the case, that is going to be really draconian, isn't it? As you see Melvin Moe rejoining and losing places as he comes up to Bruxelles.
Now, Dan Wells hasn't made a pit stop, so when he goes into the pits, he will be held for 15 seconds, and that penalty will be cleared in a different way to Sean Tong, who sits 24th there and has that 15-second penalty over him. He's already made his stop, so he doesn't need to come in and serve that 15-second penalty. It will be added to his time at the end of the race, which, personally, as commentators, but there's no other way of doing it when you're just literally giving seconds, because you don't want to penalise full drive of the pits as well.
Good battle going on here. Melvin Moe versus Kang Ling. Now, they are both stoppers, and Kang Ling, look, is ahead. So Kang Ling stopped very early on, we thought with damage, But because Melvin Moe had a slow lap, it's kind of balanced out, and Kangling is ahead of Melvin Moe. So net, Moe is dropping down in this second stint of the race, isn't he?
Mo hasn't fixed his car, has he? And he is struggling for pace because he's dropped also on this lap behind Adley Fong. So he is not got a car underneath him like he would be used to. And this is his first lap out of the pits as well, according to the timing graphic. So maybe it's just like kind of getting himself up to speed again. But he's dropped behind 2 Lamborghinis on that lap.
So what can Kangling do? Because he's been another that perhaps flatters to deceive a little bit. He seems to have good pace, but something bites late race, like a penalty or somebody else's incident. But Kangling has shown good speed in the previous rounds of the championship, and he's now 15th, the second of the stoppers, behind Billy Lowe, depending on where Tenkoui Lei feeds back in.
Lots of traffic for our leader, and a big lead too. Here comes Dan Wells, though, with that penalty looming, to try and go alongside and perhaps change the lead of the race for the first time.
So the lead gap right down, 0.3 of a second, but of course Dan Wells, if it stands, he's going to have to cope with that extra 15 seconds, so he needs to get ahead and then try and build a massive gap somehow, doesn't he? That's easier said than done, and nose to tail as they head downhill.
And this is some of the problems that when you have somebody with such experience and pace like Dan Wells, you expect the cars around you to do certain things that they just don't do because they are driven by people with far less experience, and you can get so easily caught out by somebody braking in a place where you wouldn't brake or slowing, kind of like trying to be a Formula 1 driver on a track day when you've got kind of smart cars driving around. No disrespect to a smart car, we all love them, but it's very, very hard to predict what cars around you are doing, and I think that's where probably Dan has got caught out in the same way that we saw Dennis Lynn being caught out in the European Series. So now he needs to up the pace, clear Borg, and try and see if he can make 15 seconds at the head of this race. He might have the experience to do so come the end of the race if he's kept those tyres working.
So downhill goes Aaron Borg, but Dan Wells, 24 minutes on the clock, still chasing, still looking for a way by, but even if he gets past, he's then got to somehow try and pull out that 15-second margin, hasn't he? It's possible, you never know if Aaron Borg were to have a problem, but it's certainly not going to be easy, that's for sure.
No, I wonder whether I would be pitting and putting myself on a different part of the track so I'm not stuck behind Borg, who obviously is very fast and is similar pace to Dan, but if Dan had a clear track ahead of him, or was certainly on a different part of the track, he wouldn't be being compromised as much as he is certainly right now. Now, this hasn't been the case throughout the whole of this first stint, because at times the gap's been up to 2.5 seconds, but right now Dan really looks like he's turning it on and really pushing Aaron Borg, who is about 0.4 of a second slower than his previous best. I can also say that Louis Prett's got another penalty as Dan Wells up the inside.
Wriggles his way out of the chicane, gets all sideways, a half spin, that's going to delay him, and so Aaron Borg comes up to the line then with an increased advantage. So Dan Wells had a go and it didn't work, and look, he's lost 2.5 seconds as a consequence of all of that.
What if, though, the race control deemed that as avoidable contact and Borg get given a penalty as well? It's a little naughty.
It's a good thought, isn't it, that? Let's wait and see what pans out then as the cars drop down the hill once again. Dan Wells has now got himself behind a back marker, so he's got to try and find a way through the traffic, and that's, I think, Sean Tong's Audi, isn't it? And then get back on the terms with Aaron Borg. But Borg comes out of that rally as very much the man in charge.
Yeah, and actually, if he does take this 15 seconds, he still stays in second spot because Alistair Young is so far behind. So in terms of points for the championship, although Dan not really racing for the championship, he's not going to lose too much, but I think he would rather just have the race win here. Race control still looking at stuff from very, very early on the race, so I think there's a lot more penalty decisions to come. Like we saw from Pagliacci, don't forget that Pagliacci actually got a post-race penalty after Silverstone for the contact going through Luffield on that final lap, so that's why he didn't have as many points out of Silverstone as perhaps he did when we left the programme.
Yes, that's right. The results came quite late in the day because there was a lot to look for, so always worth checking out the GT World Series Asia website with the up-to-date news. No action on that last corner contact, we're being told. Louis Pret, Ben had mentioned, has a stop-go 20-second penalty, but he'd already got one for 10 seconds, so it's not his race at all, I'm afraid to say. So there is Dan Wells. He's got himself through the traffic, but he's got to do the hard yards all over again. So he's got to catch, he's got to pass, and then he's got to pull away by 15.1 seconds to win the race. That is a big ask, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is, especially with Aaron Borg's pace right now. He is the best car out on the circuit, other than Kang Ling. And obviously Kang Ling is one of our higher placed pit stoppers, so it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. There's no reason as to why Kang Ling would be competing with our top two, because they have been in a class of their own. But once we get the pit stops through, and we do know that the top two have been compromised speed-wise by back markers throughout the race, we may see more than just those two fighting for victory.
Well, right now, you've got Dominic Ang having a go for 14th at Felipe de Souza on the inside line at Likoma. The Porsche will brake late and it will go through on the inside line there. So the Malaysian driver, Dominic Ang, puts himself up past the Macanese Am. So Pro goes ahead of Am and the Porsche instantly starts to edge away.
Yeah, once Felipe de Souza has made his pit stop, he's going to be right at the tail end of the field. Himself, Dennis Koo and Leona Chen yet to pit from the tail end of the field, and we do have a pitter from P5, so that's Jasper Tong in his BMW now heads to the pits.
And his brother has copped a drive-through as well, in addition to his 30-second penalty for causing a collision early on. So Sean Tong's race is unravelling markedly, is it not? Drive-through for Yasuoka as well.
Yes, that's interesting. That drive-through must be an automatic one.
Yeah.
Because it's not come from our race director, so that will be for taking advantage of track limits, which could well be cutting the corner at Eau Rouge, not at Eau Rouge, at Radion actually at the top, or the chicane. That's really the only two places where you can get the game to note that you've made such a advantage up by cutting the track. Usually it's just a couple of warnings, but actually you can also culminate warnings. So you can start off by getting one warning for doing, I think, an advantage of 0.2, and then you get another warning for an advantage of 0.2, and you can get up to a drive-through penalty if you run off the track too many times.
Okay, I'm with you. There's Billy Lowe in the Audi then, still trying to stay, if you like, as the best of the pit stoppers. So the Audi ploughs uphill. And Billy Lowe looking very strong, isn't he? It's a real shame he had that incident early on because it compromised the overall position.
Jasper Tong goes through. It's come out of the pit. It's not come out of the pits yet. Sorry. So Billy Lowe goes through and keeps that kind of virtual position. We're not quite sure how it shakes out come the top drivers, but there's not so many that really owe us pit stops anymore. We're only, I suppose, 18 minutes left of the race. So more and more as we do these races, we see that people like to leave their pit stops late, which we were questioning at the when we were at Laguna Seca, but it seems to be the rhythm.
Interesting, we saw an early pit stop in the sim race earlier on as somebody's outbraked themselves completely at the chicane, and it did not work, did it? Brandon Dunn pitted when he was in the lead and didn't win the race. He dropped back as perhaps a consequence of taking the stop too early. Admittedly, that was in wet conditions. Kevin Say up into 4th place now. Who was that in the Mercedes that ran out of road? Was that Nan Lin possibly out of 5th?
Not lost too much time. One driver that has on that last lap, Felipe de Souza, 17 seconds slower than he was, and Andrew Harrianto is also not having a very good lap. Harrianto, though, is in a Bentley, and de Souza is in an Audi, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, it looked like one of the Mercedes had outbraked itself, and I think possibly it was Nan Lin. However, Kevin Say doing a really good job here. We know he's very experienced in real-world racing. 8th, his best outright result of the season, but he's on target to win the championship here within the AM class, is he not?
Yeah, looking good so far, but again, depending on how much pace Billy Lowe has managed to put down different parts of the track, running faster than, especially when Kevin Say finds himself in traffic. Yes, there was a gap pre-race, but pre-stop, I should say. But just how much of a gap is that still going to be come the pit stop from Kevin Say? That is the question.
It is indeed, as Billy Lowe presses on. Very frustrated after the earlier delays, but the Audi drops downhill. Billy Lowe from China GT Masters Asia he's raced in. 38 Kevin Say goes through, and fourth place outright. Now don't forget that's fourth on the road. Depending on what that 15 seconds for Dan Wells does, he could be even better than that, couldn't he?
Yeah, let's see. There's such a big gap behind Dan Wells to Alistair Young that certainly looking at the top three now, you would say that Dan Wells won't lose positions, but you do have to consider all of those guys that have also pitted, and if Billy Lowe finds himself that he's made up that much ground, then yeah, he would be ahead of Alistair Young as well, and then he would be back to basically where he was pre the dramas that he had.
Kevin Say doing a very impressive job indeed. His next target, in a sense, Alistair Young's Lexus, but Kevin Say's leading his class. So as long as that message is getting through to him, and from Craft Bamboo Racing it should, the AM class championship leader, champion-elect, heading for a third victory of the season, comes over the line. His work is done, just bring it home. Make a good pit stop, don't make any mistakes. Championship's his.
Let's see. I'm not sure. I think Billy Lowe's got good pace underneath him, and in that last lap took a second out of Kevin Say, and I don't remember how many seconds he lost, but everything is still possible with 15 minutes remaining. We're getting to the point now where things are getting lighter because they've got less fuel, but the tyres will be the best of the tyres are gone. Not so many people at the head of the field losing massive amounts of time. Alistair Young in traffic right now, so he's losing a bit of time. And that traffic will soon be with Kevin C as well.
There is Young, third, getting himself up past Dominic Ang, but the lead gap is down again, isn't it? So Dan Wells has fought back quite nicely, 1.4 seconds, but even if he gets through, he surely can't pull out 15 seconds unless Borg has a problem.
No, I don't think so. I think really, unfortunately for Dan Wells, that is just going to be just too hard. Here is Aaron Borg. And those two are just running very, very good times. They're running very consistent times. They're not kind of going back and forth like we saw on the first race of our real drivers series, where the consistency wasn't there. They would do a really fast lap, but then they would do a really slow lap. Dan Wells and Aaron Borg have just been consistently fast at the head of the field. Though saying that, with that traffic last time, Aaron Borg has lost 1.1 seconds, and Dan Wells is right on his tail again.
He is indeed. He's brought the gap right down, hasn't he? It was 9/10, it's now 6/10 as he goes over the timing line. As far as the AMs are concerned, it was about 2 seconds between Say and Lowe before the stops. This is Aaron Borg's view as he comes out of La Source. Now, equally, he can't afford to make a mistake. If he does have a spin, let's say, that suddenly helps that 15-second problem for Dan Wells, because really, Alistair Young, I think, is too far back. So Dan Wells versus Aaron Borg versus that 15-second. That's now the battle.
Bit of fuel saving going on as well for Aaron Borg on map 2. Don't think we know that the Mercedes is thirsty. We know that's a feature of the Mercedes on ACC. We see it in Monza as well. And that maybe is why Dan Wells is so all over the rear bumper of Aaron Borg right now. Different lines going through the Lacon section. He's got a bit more momentum. He's going to put down the inside into Bruxelles.
And he's going to do it, isn't he? Because he's on the inside, he's on the tighter line, and he's gone through. So Dan Wells there goes by, gets the Lamborghini into the lead. Now this is going to be fascinating. 12.5 on the clock. They've both got to make a pit stop. Can Dan Wells get away to the tune of 15 seconds or more?
Well, on this lap, evidence, yes, he could do it, because Dan is 1.4 seconds faster at this point in the lap, halfway around the lap, than Aaron Borg. I wonder whether, number one, Aaron has realised he's not got enough fuel to get to the end of the race, so that's why he's turned it down to map 2, or is he asking a bit too much of his tyres right now? Has he got himself overheating the tyres? The track conditions, it's 8:15 in the evening, so the track conditions should be getting cooler. So it's 11 degrees, so it's not hot. But that 11 degrees tends to mean that you do ask a lot of the tyres, because they don't stick as much as they would do if it was a hotter day. So you tend to kind of grate the tyres more and wear them down harder. let's see if Aaron can get himself back settled in. Now he's behind the Lamborghini and hopefully doesn't get drawn into kind of trying to be too fast and make this mistake.
Well, that's it, isn't it? Because 15 seconds is still quite a big margin. Up over the timing line then goes Dan Wells. So he's got the lead, but he's only got away by just under a second. So with 11 minutes to go, it's 0.9 of a second. I don't think it's on unless Borg makes a mistake or has a problem in traffic, and you never know what might strike in these races. Downhill they plunge, so we are almost approaching that final sixth of the race as they come through Eau Rouge here. There is Dan Wells. To the eye, you would say he is getting away though now, but he's not driving away by seconds per corner. That's the problem. And now there's only 11 minutes to go. Has he got enough time left in the race?
Dan Wells did his best lap of the race only 2 laps ago, at 18.957. So he's got plenty in his car. He can definitely still push. And in fact, he's going faster on this lap already than he'd been previously before. So there is the pace there as Kevin C, our leader, comes into the pits, and the significant thing is where he comes out of the pits in relation to Billy Lowe.
Absolutely right. So that could decide the AM class in the race and also determine what happens in the championship. Right, Billy Lowe is down then, as you see, approaching Stavelo now through the curb Paul Frere as Kevin Say arrives in the pit lane. So Lowe up the curb, Say sits there for quite a long time before he's able to
he's
rejoin.
Taking some fuel. He's obviously decided that he needs fuel rather than fuel save. And he lost a couple of seconds to Alistair Young, who is just ahead of him. Those two pitching together.
Yeah, Young was ahead on entry, ahead as he rejoins, but still half a pit lane to go here for Kevin Say. So he's on his way now down from La Source. As up to La Source comes Billy Lowe. So the Audi looking to get ahead of the Mercedes, one at full race pace, one on crawl mode down through the endurance pits. And I think that Billy Lowe is going to be ahead, is he not? And he's going to do it long before he gets to the bottom of the hill, because the Mercedes still in the pit lane. Billy Lowe, yes, will go back ahead in the AM class. You see the Mercedes in the background, but Billy Lowe has done it then, so he puts himself ahead, and that means that the AM championship is going to go down to the last round of the series.
Good news, that's what we wanted. Didn't want a championship that is decided too early, so great news to have everything still open with our final round in a couple of weeks' time.
Now that is Aaron Borg coming in. He's lost his race lead and now serves his pit stop. So let's see what he does. Is he going to take on fuel here, Ben, do you wonder?
Let's have a look. He was fuel saving, but again, he does need to sit in the pits a little bit longer than you would expect. It's not a lot of fuel, but it's a little splash. Usually, with a no fuel or tyre stop, that car is only really stationary for 1 or 2 seconds. So I would say he's taken some, probably safety, to get him to the end of the race, because he'll know that Dan Wells has got that penalty. So that was probably a wise choice rather than a race fighting choice.
Okay, now go back to this Dan Wells penalty for us. It's a plus 15 second, it's a time penalty. That's added on at the end of the race, or he has to serve it when he makes his pit stop?
He doesn't have to, he will have to serve it when he makes his pit stop, because he hasn't made a pit stop. So it will be, he'll be stuck in the pits for 15 seconds. He can't choose to opt against it. If he didn't make a pit stop, it would be added to the end of the race.
Right, okay, so he can't argue about it because it's
exactly.
there. He's got to serve it, right. So there is Billy Lowe, and he is the AM leader once more. It's going to be interesting as well to see where he is in relation to Aaron Borg as the best pro stopper right now. But Billy Lowe comes into the chicane, into the right, into the left, and we've got 7 minutes on the clock here. But you've got to feel a bit for Dan Wells. We haven't seen the incident. It could be that when we do see it, he's banged to rights. But it's been a really good debut in the championship. And yet, after all his hard work to help others with their sims, their rigs, he's going to cop a penalty and not win the race potentially.
Yeah, exactly. But actually, Aaron Borg has been his equal, hasn't he? In terms of pace, it's been so impressive to see Aaron Borg be able to match Dan in the way that he has. Still 2 pit stoppers to go from our top 3, James Russell and Dan Wells. Wells goes past the pit, so he's not coming in this one. He's leaving it to the very end. But I wonder just how high Billy Lowe is going to elevate himself here. It could be it could be a really good recovery drive in that Audi with the extra pace.
Yeah, I mean, he's not really showing much in the way of damage, is he? There is Aaron Borg going through then in second place, but he's made his pit stop. That's the significance out of all of this.
And, 6 minutes remaining. There's not many laps left to get the pit stop in. Adley Fong comes into the pits. He's left it late as well. I see Adley doing it a little bit better, really, inside the top 10 here, but you feel like if he didn't get himself caught up with other accidents, and he has been victim to other accidents in this race, he could be in the top 5. But just one opportunity left. Suzuka is our last round of the championship in a couple of weeks' time.
It's going to be interesting this as well, isn't it? If Aaron Borg does take the win on corrected times, how that brings him into the mix in the championship, because he's going to be on potentially 50 points, only 12 back from Division Padiachi. So we're thinking coming into this race it was Padiachi versus Mo, but actually because of Padiachi's non-finish, we could end up with a 3-way battle for Pro Honours in that last race at Suzuka, which would be really a great way to finish the season.
Melvin Mo P6 could be P5, probably not P4 by the end of the race, so he will pick up some points. And we're going to have a 3-way fight for sure. That'll be great.
Well, he is going to be P5 in class, isn't he?
Of course, yes. He'll be P4 because I reckon James Russell will drop behind him.
Yes, that's true. Yes, because he's yet to stop, and we've got Dan Wells yet to stop plus 15 seconds. Right, okay, juggle. But yes, it's looking a bit more optimistic for Melvin Mo now. Dervish Padiachi shouting at his television saying, no, somebody get in his way, delay him. How does Alistair Young get back past Melvin Mo? But I don't think he can now. And Billy Lowe, not only did he get ahead of Kevin Say on the pit stops, but he's absolutely checked out, hasn't he? Considering there were about 2 seconds betwixt the two before Billy Lowe made his pit stop. Kevin Say has fallen a long way adrift as you look there at Aaron Borg, and that is the race leader. Now, does Dan Wells come into the pit lane this time? No, he does not. Stays out.
Because he really doesn't have any opportunities left to pit. It'll have to be the next lap. I'm just trying to think, is there a way that he could pit to a Schumacher?
Well, I was thinking the same thing, yes. But then he's still got his 15-second penalty to add.
No, because he wouldn't take the checker flag is so early on that F1 pit straight that he would finish the race before he pitted.
But the timing line stretches across the pit lane, so he would take the flag in the pits as he came into the pits. The beam is the beam is the beam.
But he wouldn't have actually made the stop, so he would.
No.
No.
But he would be in the pit lane. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was a loophole that Michael Schumacher managed to ensure was tightened forever and a day. But it's a good thought. Yeah. Dan might be thinking something similar on the basis that, well, why not? You know, I'm not in the championship hunt. Let's take a punt on it. But it's a shame that he has got this Damocletian penalty because he's looking very strong. Now, James Russell is 16 seconds back. He's got to serve a pit stop as well. James, team owner, racer, rallier. And the Honda going nicely in third place. And again, you know, Kang Ling has just got on with the job, hasn't he? Almost unnoticed in that middle third of the race. He's crept up the order and will gain more places, I think, Kang Ling, before the very end.
Yeah, he's past Melvin Mo when Melvin came out the pits, and although the Mercedes is slightly stronger now, Kang Ling is still in a really, really nice, strong position. And in fact, Alistair Young, who spent so much of the race in third position, drops behind both of those after his pit stop. So just very, very curious to see these last two pit stops being completed as we kind of get into the golden hour. This is when the ACC platform really comes into its own, that orangey glow from the sun as it sets. And I've seen Spa at this time of the year very similar to that. You do get those big warm sunsets on a nice day.
I've never seen it at this time because normally somebody has presented me with a beer, so I'm lost to the world by that stage, Ben, as you will remember. Dan Wells, surely he's got to come in this time because otherwise he'll be on his last lap. So Dan does indeed pit to start the last lap of the race. It will be in Gasoline Alley, and that should potentially give Borg the lead back. Let's see what happens.
I mean, it doesn't really help us, though, does it, in terms of trying to work out what's going on in this race? Thanks, Dan. Same with James Russell. He's going to have to come into the pits on this one as well.
Well, we know that it's going to be when that Lamborghini rejoins the run to the checkered flag. So Aaron Borg at Pouan, look, has got a lap and a half to go, and he's making his way down now towards the pith path. In comes Dan Wells, but he's got to sit there for 15 seconds.
It's
And he
gonna
does
be
so.
He's gonna be sitting there. I'm a bit confused because he would have crossed the line to start the last lap as the leader of the race.
Yes.
But then he will not be the person who takes the last lap. So Aaron Ball's going to cross the line to start his last lap. Yeah, I think it works out. I think it's okay.
But Dan Wells is on his last lap because he's gone across the timing line. The timing line's at the exit of the bus stop. So he's on his last lap in the pits. Aaron Borg is about to start his last lap, but actually, somehow, Dan Wells, well, it's deceptive, isn't it? Because he's still got the endurance pits to go. He is still in the lead. Aaron Borg is closing. But this is where the endurance pit lane is just so long because he's barely got into it yet. You think, actually, he's done okay, but he's got all of that pit lane to go. And so Aaron Borg is going to get the lead of the race back, and it's about to happen. Dan Wells will go down the pit road and wait for the Mercedes to come pouncing past him round about now. Aaron Borg on track, leads. There is Dan Wells in the background, and he can't yet accelerate away. So Aaron Borg gets the lead back.
And James Russell comes into the pits with just 20 seconds remaining of the race, so he also chooses the last lap, and a hugely long pit stop. So Dan Wells now comes out of the pits. Where will he fall into line? I don't really think Kang Ling is close enough to take away second from him. But again, a bit more tricky because James Russell is there. Now the clock ticks to 0, so the flag will be out next time.
Right, so there is Dan Wells, 12 and a half seconds back from Aaron Borg at that first sector point, and now you don't have to worry about the penalty because he served it. We're now not adding times to anybody, so down towards Bruxelles goes Wells, but as long as Borg doesn't make a mistake, it's game over, isn't it, as far as a win for Dan Wells is concerned?
Yeah, and 12.4 seconds. If he didn't have that 15-second penalty, he'd be 2.4 ahead. No, 2.6 ahead. But
yes.
I was waiting for Kang Ling, but he's 30 seconds back. It just shows the pace that those two put in at the start of the race. Unbelievable to have such a huge advantage over the rest of the field.
The other one that I think perhaps can feel a little bit hard done by is Billy Lowe. His pace has been outstanding, and yet, of course, he had that incident in the first third of the race. Without the time lost there, could have been a whole different story. But yeah, Aaron Borg is going to take a second victory of the season, but crucially, he's going to bring himself into the mix in the championship, going to Suzuka. December the 8th is the date. We're in for a really brilliant final 2 races of the TCL GT World Challenge Asia eSports Championship presented by Tarmac Works, and for the first time this year, Aaron Borg is going to come up and score a race win. The checker flag at the ready. There is the flag. Aaron Borg victorious at Spa, his maiden victory in the championship. And where is Dan Wells? Now he comes out of the chicane being chased by Kang Ling, but 2 wins to Padiachi, 1 to Melvin Moe, 1 to Aaron Borg. That means it's a 3-way fight for the championship going to Suzuka. Dan Wells takes second, and there is Kang Ling set for 3rd place. But as ever, Ben Constanduras, a race of high drama.
High drama and some really strong performances now. These guys are getting just as good as the sim drivers, especially those front 2. An absolute dominant performance by the 2 of them, and I can't wait to see how they all get on with Suzuka, which of course they've already raced in the Charity Cup, so they'll have some experience. There's lots of time for practicing. Can't wait to see how it goes.
Billy Lowe as well, 2nd class win of the season, and that brings us nicely to that final round as far as the AM competition is concerned, because it means now that you're going to have, although Kevin say will still be ahead, the gap is going to be markedly narrower. It's going to be 13 points between them, so it's still a tough one for Billy Lowe to win the championship, but it is possible, it is doable. But Aaron Borg then, maiden victory, well done Aaron Borg. Dan Wells 2nd, Kang Ling in 3rd place, and yet another fabulous race within the championship, and 1 more race per class to go, and that's going to be at Suzuka, which promises to be the perfect setting for a championship showdown. But for Aaron Borg, a maiden victory, and he really deserved that. Good pace, didn't put a wheel wrong, and although we've had a great day here, Paul Jeffrey, already we're looking forward to the showdown at Suzuka, aren't we?
Fantastic. Thanks very much, David. We are indeed an absolutely sensational race at Spa-Francorchamps, delivering drama, excitement, and Ben, all the way through to the checkered flag, it was still open who was going to round out those podium positions.
Yeah, well, thanks to Dan Wells not pitting, basically, wasn't it? if he'd pitted a little earlier, we would have known a bit earlier on what was going to happen. But that was his choice. But not quite sure why people make that choice. I guess it's down to a rhythm thing. You don't want to upset your rhythm by making a pit stop, and so just sad really for Dan, because he's incredibly fast and obviously got caught up with Darrell Young at one point. Didn't see it on screen, but ultimately you could have won the race if it hadn't been for that 15-second penalty.
And of course, with Padiachi retiring from the race, our championship leader, bit of a missed goal for Melvin Moe. Couple of mistakes there, dropped him down to 6th at the flag, and this could have been a big point-scoring weekend for Melvin.
Yeah, Melvin wasn't driving a car that was totally straight. I'm pretty sure that Mercedes was not working as well as it should have been after the various contacts that he had had. A great opportunity. He should have stayed out of trouble more and really just bagged the points. Very unlucky for Padiachi to have an internet go down. But as we said in the commentary, that's sim racing for you, isn't it? You know well, if your wheel breaks, your pedals break, your computer decides to do an update. There's so many things that happen in sim racing that don't happen in the real world, but are considered basically kind of technical issues.
Well, that's it. Mechanical failures are a part of life in real and virtual worlds. And David, one quick final thought from Spa-Francorchamps. We are set up for a battle royal in the final round at Suzuka, aren't we?
Absolutely so. Across all 4 classes, we are in for 2 excellent races. We don't yet know what weather we're going to have thrown at us, and I'm not entirely convinced actually that anybody really can go there just to bank points. I need to have a look at the real AM situation, because relatively speaking, Kelvin Say and Billy Lowe have been the class of the field. Kevin Say might be able to take 2nd place, bank the points, but pretty much everybody, and this is the good thing for us watching, everybody pretty much has got to go there and leave nothing on the table. They've all got to go and attack in order to win championships. It's not a case of plod round towards the bottom of the top 10 and just bank a few and win the championship. We're in for 2 really exciting attacking races. Bring it on!
Superb. Thank you very much, David, once again for lending your voice to this broadcast. And to Ben, some final thoughts. If you were a betting man, who would you have your money on heading into Suzuka?
Oh, that's a tricky one. Probably if I was a betting man, I'd like to play safe and go with a guy who's leading the championship at the moment, who's got that slight advantage. But ultimately, that can add pressure, can bring difficulties, and we know that some cars work best in different environments, and Suzuka is its own track and has its own characteristics, and therefore could certainly favour other cars than perhaps we've seen being strong so far in the championship. And again, as David said, what about the weather? We know you can go flat out without needing to really do any terms of pit stops and save tyres and stuff, but if it's as cold as it probably would be at Suzuka mid-December, which would be kind of snow on the ground, then it could throw up even more challenges.
And there's also a chance that we may have a night race at Suzuka. So if you're at home, don't forget that broadcast takes place on December the 8th, the same time, the same place. There are 3 drivers in the Real Driver Championship that could take series honours. There are championships to be decided throughout. So I've been Paul Jeffrey, alongside me Ben Constanduris and David Addison. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you to AK Informatica for running this championship, to Kunos Simulazione for the simulation that is Assetto Corsa Competizione. Thank you to everybody at home for tuning in and engaging. We really do appreciate it. Thank you to TCL, our new lead sponsor, and to Tarmac Works. I've been Paul Jeffrey. This has been Spa-Francorchamps at the TCL GT World Challenge Asia eSports, presented by Tarmac Works. Until next time, we'll see you on December the 8th. Bye-bye.
20. Oh,
that's one. That's one. Yeah.
24. 24. 24 and Sean's 18.
I was like fourth, right? Fourth or third
Yeah.
at one point.
Audio's working?
Yeah.
Oh.
And did you see my rear mirrors? He's trying to take me out again.
Yeah, again.
Yeah.
What's he doing?
With the same car, with the Mercedes.
Jiadong, right?
Ning?
No,
Is it
Jiadong.
No, Jiadong.
Jiadong, yeah.
The guy who qualified on pole last race.
Oh, you guys are on TV, by the way.
Yeah, you're live now.
Yeah, you guys are live.
Start? Do you want to start?
Well, I got nothing to say. I think I did a great race.
Yeah?
Apart from the track limit stuff.
Yeah.
Which...
Did you get penalized?
Yeah. Which I wouldn't
At
do
the
that.
same time, basically. Just
Which-
one lap difference.
Which I wouldn't do that if I'm in the front. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
I just literally gave up at the end.
Yeah.
So I got the drive-through. I spun twice. I still have a post-race 30 seconds penalty. And what do I still have?
You finished like 18?
And I repaired my car for a minute in the pit.
Yeah, like 40 seconds. 40 seconds. 40 seconds.
My
yeah.
steering was like this. You couldn't believe it. I was like this, and I cut the track, and it said I gained advantage. What a...
No, it's just, there's microsectors. So at the beginning of the race.
At the beginning of the race, of course.
Yeah, but at the beginning of the race, you didn't set up. You don't
Yeah.
set up a time for the
But
microsectors.
my
So
steering is like this. I'm not gonna go through chicanes.
that was fun.
はい。ということで、スタートを安全にいった結果、追突されまして、めちゃくちゃな台数に追突されまして、車が未だかつてないほどポロポロになりまして、ピットで、1分34秒のリペアのおかげで車が新品同様に復活しましてそこからは気持ちよく走れる時もあったんですけど、基本的にどんどん遅い車に追いついてしまうので、こちらは周回遅れなので、そのね綺麗に抜かないといけないので、皆さん見ていたと思いますけど、丁寧に抜いていきましたが、厳しいですただでもやっぱりあれですね、表彰台のペースはなかったかなって感じですね。やっぱトップ5くらいですかね、現実的に。ね。What's the result?
24.
No, like who was 1, 2, 3?
Aaron Borg,
Yeah.
Dan
Oh.
Wells.
This is the finish? No,
Shiga,
this is.
right.
Can you get the finish?
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to see where everyone was. そう、これ大体自分から
Can I use the mouse?
So yeah, I think my race is interesting. Good pace. Dirty racing maybe.
You want me to do
Welcome to
it?
sim racing, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
もうだから
At least everyone had fun watching the race.
そうですね、やっぱり6位ですかね。このローは誰でしたっけ？
Yeah.
He took it away.
No, this is
It was
results. Oh, okay.
そうですね、やっぱりだから P6 ぐらいなんですかね、ペース的に。
Billy Lowe. Billy Lowe. 4.
ねえ、これ15秒ペナルティでしょ、ウェルズ。
Wells, はい。
彼がトップでフィニッシュでしょ。
違う。Well, finished. Top finish.
僕のことを追突した方サイン入ってますね。これはやっぱり抗議で叩きのめすべきですかね。モンツァでも当てられてますし。ねえ。どうしましょうね。 Oh, your brother was P10.
Yeah, and he got taken out by Alex as well. Like everyone got taken out by him. Like in the chat, like already 10 drivers saying like, you know, this guy, Liang Jiatong, he got disqualified because he got like a 30-second. He got a stop and go, which he didn't surf, and then he got.
But he was like 3 laps
yeah,
ahead.
and then he was outside crashing people like on purpose.
Yeah, it was ridiculous. だって試験カットしてショーンに狙ってたのね。He cut that chicane like and about to hit you.
Yeah, he planned to hit me, right?
Yeah.
And it drove him off.
I think at the end also he tried again.
Yeah,
the first sector.
At the end of the straight on the top of the orange.
So championship battle is alive in both.
Yes, because Padayachi had connection issues.
Where is he?
And he dropped. He was his last. Dead last.
They're not.
Australian internet failed him.
Yeah.
I didn't say that. The commentator said that.
He was out by half a lap.
Yeah.
Of the first. Which could be better instead of doing the whole race and then losing it at the end.
残念です。
Next race.
Okay, so next.
はい、
Suzuka.
次、再来週、鈴鹿ですね。はい、まあ、ジャパニーズとしては地元なんで、谷口さんと頑張りたいと思います。もちろんね、ショーン、日本で頑張ってるショーン。はい。
Not here. Sean is not here.
I'm here.
Any thoughts about Suzuka race?
Yeah.
Next 2 weeks.
Well, all I can say is welcome to sim racing. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah, I think Borg deserved to win anyway.
Yeah.
He had so many
He's good for
unfortunate.
He has the fastest lap too.
Yeah.
Who? Padayashi.
Borg.
Oh, really?
I think he deserved
He did
to win.
very clean.
Yeah.
Yeah, but maybe he's gonna guess. He spun Dan Wells around.
No, it was kind of like.
No,
Too
that was
close.
interesting because Dan Wells was fighting with Borg, but I'm
Yeah.
quicker than Dan Wells, right? I'm overtaking him.
Yeah,
Remember,
you were like,
I was
Daniels,
I was overtaking
Daniels
him.
when he got rid of Borg,
Yeah.
legal or illegally, then he did a 89.
でもそうですね。ビリーが4位だった。
Borg was on map 2.
Why is Melvin so low?
He screwed it up.
Right? Yeah. So maybe P3 or 4 was possible.
Who was that?
Melvin.
Yeah, I mean, you guys had pace to be top 5 easily.
Yeah.
Oh.
No,
And you know
that's-
who tapped? Who hit me in
I think it's Kevin Say.
You?
yeah, lap 1.
Lap 1 was
Kevin, I think we have the replay, so we check now.
He lifted it up.
I should drive him. Every time I'm in a Mercedes, it's not too bad. Every time I'm in an Audi, like I got taken up by a Mercedes.
The list of protest.
Yeah, that's the list.
はい。Let's look at the race.
お疲れ様です。バイバイ。
Next race.
次、富士ね、まず。鈴鹿じゃない、スーパー GT 富士頑張り